Chapter 1. You look as fine as a dime. I smiled and laughed as I looked at my friend. Today was supposedly going to be one of the best days of her life. That is what the elders had said, but every female werewolf knew that it was only wishful thinking. The mating ceremony was anything but fun. So I've heard, and it was the first time my friend Liliana would be attending. The mating ceremony is where all the packs meet on neutral ground so that males can choose their mates. Everyone between the ages of 18 and 30 was required to attend, and it always took place on the first Friday of October. All the lucky males and females eligible could find a mate. The whole thing was a more formal way of males choosing their mates, and they would have a wider selection. However, once you turned 18, you were fair game to anyone, but a male choosing a mate outside of a ceremony was incredibly rare. I had never really considered myself lucky. However, considering that my birthday landed on Saturday this year, I was the happiest she-wolf in the world. Even though my 18th birthday was tomorrow, I was still technically 17 and therefore unable to attend. My friend, Liliana, on the other hand, had her 18th birthday in May, so here I was, helping her get ready. "I don't want to go. I want to stay home and watch movies with you," she grumbled and crossed her arms. "I wish you could too, trust me." I was being completely honest when I made that statement. Liliana was quite literally one of the prettiest girls I had ever seen in my life. And she was the beta's daughter. There was no way she wasn't going to get picked, and I would miss her like crazy. Her thick black hair was pin straight and fell to her waist, and her body was clad in a tight, black, long-sleeve dress that accentuated her figure, ending just above the knees. When I told her she looked fine, I meant it. She had curves for days thanks to her Latina mother. Liliana's acrylic nails were always coffin-shaped, and she rotated between white, pink, and white ombre. Tonight, they were white, and her makeup was always done flawlessly. I honestly do not remember a time when I saw her leave the house without her brows being perfectly groomed in some lash product, whether it be falsies, extensions, or mascara. If I could look like her or at least have half of her makeup skills, I'd be incredibly happy. She always told me that she would teach me, but neither of us ever had time, and whenever we hung out together, we just wanted to relax. Liliana wasn't my only friend, but she was the friend I was closest to, and we'd known each other for more than 10 years. "Liliana, we have to go!" Her father, the beta, shouted from downstairs. She let out a whiny noise, and I looked at her with sympathy. "You have to wait up for me so I can talk to you afterwards." "Of course," I held up my hands. "I'll even get snacks." "Goddess Addie, I really don't want to go," she said as she opened her bedroom door. I followed her out, listening to her complaints about and ravings about how she could beat the system with my help, and how she was going to throw hands if a male older than 25 chose her. I shouldn't have laughed at her, but I did, even though they were genuine and profound things to talk about. "You could just hide in a corner, but I don't know." I shrugged, continuing to follow her out of her house. "I'll probably just hide in the bathroom the whole time, to be completely honest," she sighed. "And what if I get chosen by, you know?" Liliana looked at me, suggesting something, and I raised my eyebrows. No, I did not know who. "Oh my goddess Addie! Beta Lodge, or worse his Alpha Donnelly?" She looked at me accusingly as if I didn't know the answer to 2 + 2. The names did sound familiar, and soon a click of memory occurred. "Oh, from the Agrios Pack, right? The stories about them probably aren't true," I said dismissively. "They are." Liliana's father brushed by me and into the driver's seat of the car. "Ah, Greg, always packing a punch." Her father was a man of few words, but he was nice to me and spoiled Lily and her mother with everything he had. On rare occasions, he spoiled me too, because I was also like a daughter to him. On my 17th birthday, I went to a movie with Liliana, and he came along only to buy snacks for me. That was my present from him. However, movie theater snacks are expensive for absolutely no reason. After that movie, he gave me a crisp $100 bill and told me that if he had a son, he'd want him to choose me as a mate. Her father waved me goodbye, and so did Liliana as she got into the passenger seat of the car. I returned it and then walked next door to my house. I stepped inside, grabbed my car keys, and left. I really hope Liliana would be okay. She did seem to go a bit pale when she mentioned their names, but I'm sure it was fine. Sighing, I stepped into my car and drove to the store to buy snacks for when she came back. Chapter 2. A few hours of watching Netflix and doing homework had passed, but Liliana still had not texted. She could show up at any minute or text, but she hadn't responded to my previous messages, and I was growing concerned. The doorbell rang and I instantly shot up to get it. "I'll get it," I shouted to my mom and rushed down the stairs. I opened the door to be greeted with a tear-stained Liliana. Her mascara was slowly smudging as her tears continued. "Oh, Shiitake Lily. What happened?" I asked, and escorted her inside my house. She instantly started walking up the stairs to my room, and I closed the door before following her. Whatever happened must have been bad. I had never seen her so distraught before, and it was making me anxious. When I entered my room, she was sitting on my bed as sobs racked through her. I tried my best to comfort her, and soon her cries stopped. When they did, I passed her a blanket and some makeup wipes. "Lily, what happened?" I asked. "Alpha Donnelly is my mate," she hiccuped. "He's so cruel. I don't understand why he had to choose me." I sat there and stared at her. I didn't even know what to say. "Where is his pack again?" I asked. If his pack was close by, I could visit Liliana as often as I could, because she seems miserable right now. "Seattle," she said, and then whimpered, tears threatening to fall again. "Oh, geez," I said, and looked down. It would be a little hard to visit her if she were across the country. "I leave tomorrow." She held her knees to her chest and rested her head on them. "The only reason I'm not with him now is because when he chose me, I ran to your house right away." My heart dropped, and I tried not to cry. "I'm scared he's going to find me, Addie. I'm so scared." Her voice broke as she looked at me with watery eyes. My eyes started to well up as well, and the tears were going to fall at any moment. Liliana was going to be leaving tomorrow, and I couldn't do anything to help her. What a great birthday I was going to have tomorrow. "We still have tonight, though, right? He won't find you." "Not tonight," I said. She sniffled but gave a small smile. "Yeah." The rest of the night was filled with eating candy and watching Disney princess movies. At some point, she snuck into her house next door, grabbed a change of clothes, and showered. I showered as well when she was gone, and then we were both in my room in sweats, munching on chips and chocolate. And even though it was nice to be with her, my heart was still sad that I wouldn't be able to do this with her any time soon after tonight. It was a bitter feeling, and I hated it with every fiber of my being. Eventually, we both suffered our own sugar crashes and fell asleep, neither of us really wanting to wake up and face the next morning. But it still hit us loud and clear, and sounded an awful lot like someone banging on our door. I whined at the sound, but slowly roused myself awake so that I could go down and open it. I glanced at myself in the mirror to smooth out my hair and then grabbed a random sweatshirt. Whoever was at the door better prepare themselves to see a walking nightmare because I looked awful. I pulled the sweatshirt over my head and looked over at Lily, who was still sleeping peacefully. Then the person behind the door decided to hit the door with more force, causing her to wake up slowly. I ran down the stairs and opened the door. In front of me were two tall men, both dressed in suits, radiating authority and power. I tilted my head upward to look at the man in front of me. He was attractive, and he also looked like he wanted to break me in half for having him wait so long before I opened the door. I gulped nervously because with his build, he could easily do so. "Liliana, where is she?" The man seethed. "Dog, it's 7 a.m. Chill." May I ask who you are?" I furrowed my eyebrows. The man rolled his eyes. "Alpha Donnelly, and this is my beta, Gabriel Lodge. Now, where is she?" he said between gritted teeth. Oh, I guess I wasn't their nightmare, but they were quite literally Lily's walking nightmares. Alpha Donnelly was seething before, so I put my head down to submit to him before turning around to wake Liliana. I heard a small gasp at the top of the stairs and looked up. Liliana was already up and staring at the Alpha behind me in terror. I could not blame her. The man was terrifying. Even if he did have blonde hair and baby blue eyes, the aura that radiated off him made me want to crawl at his feet and cry. It took me a while to realize I was shaking a little bit. Alpha Caden must have noticed his new mate's arrival to the scene because he let out a growl before pushing past me and storming up the stairs. Liliana just stared at Caden as he grabbed her wrist and began leading her down the stairs. "I need a private room to talk to my mate." I pointed towards my father's empty study on the main floor, which was by the kitchen, and he nodded at the room in approval before taking Lily to the room with him. She looked back at me with pleading eyes as he dragged her to the room. Chapter 3. I followed them to the study, but the door was slammed in my face. How rude. I stumbled back, while looking down, into a hard chest. I think the goddess made me look down so I could feel the burn of embarrassment. This was karma for not getting the door soon enough, because while looking down, I saw my feet, clad in lilac purple socks, step on shiny black dress shoes. What's even worse is that the person who owned those shoes was still wearing them as I stepped on them. Not only did I step on his shoes, but also on his feet. Lily's father had those same dress shoes, but in brown. And I knew they were expensive, so I quickly stumbled forward again and turned around to apologize. Beta Lodge looked at me, annoyed, as I apologized, but he nodded his head when I was done. I looked back at the room where Lily was, and after not hearing any screaming, crying, or yelling, I decided it would be okay to make coffee. I had a feeling they would be in there for a while, and I was powerless in the situation, and tired. I was running on the leftover candy in my stomach from the night before, and who knows when we fell asleep. After watching Princess and the Frog, Beauty and the Beast, and then Mulan, 1 and 2, we drifted off. I poured myself a cup and then looked over to the man across the counter. Beta Lodge, I summoned a substantial portion of my courage. His face snapped towards mine, and I took a step back, even though he was on the other side of the kitchen island. His face was still stern and unyielding, just like his Alpha's. "Would you like some coffee?" I offered. If the stories were true, like Lily's father said, I would try to stay on their good sides. However, because of what happened earlier, I'm not sure if it was a fruitful effort. "Yes." His baritone voice almost made me drop the mug. I wasn't expecting him actually to say anything. I just thought he would nod. I poured him a mug and handed it to him. Before I could even give him the creamer or sugar, he began to sip it. I slowly backed away with the creamer and watched him with narrowed eyes as he sipped his coffee black and scrolled through his phone, the case of which was black. Perhaps he truly appreciates the color black? I mean, what is not to like? It was practically the only color I wore, besides some splashes of color here and there. Ever since my 7th grade emo phase, I mainly wore dark colors. People who couldn't handle all black anything were weak, but I didn't make the rules. The hair on top of his head was black as well, as was his suit. Alpha Donnelly's suit was the classic MIB suit. A white button-down shirt, black tie, black suit jacket, and black pants. But Beta Lodge's suit was all black except for the tie. He didn't wear one, and so his top button was undone, revealing the outer edge of what I assumed was a large tattoo. Oh, shiitake. He seems like one of those people who don't even blink when they have a bunch of tiny needles stabbing your body with ink. His gaze quickly met mine, and my eyes widened while his narrowed, but only a fraction. "Who are you?" he asked lowly. "Adelaide Greyson." "How old are you?" 18. He looked me up and down slowly with an unsympathetic gaze and narrowed eyes. "You and Luna are close, but you did not go to the mating ceremony yesterday." "Why?" he growled. Why is he growling? Did he see me as a threat? Or something? Why was he growling? I was 5'5", nothing compared to his 6'2" height. Not to mention, he was obviously built, and my arms resembled spaghetti noodles in the proper lighting. I felt like I was being interrogated in a crime show in one of those dreadful rooms with terrible lighting. Yet, I was in my kitchen, in black sweatpants, a gray hoodie with the word "Yikes" imprinted on the front, and fuzzy lilac socks. These men really need just to calm down. I remember when "take a chill pill" was a saying. I wasn't 18 yesterday, but turn 18 today, Beta Lodge. I looked down at the floor in submission. He didn't say anything, but went back to drinking his coffee. You know what? Yikes is right. Oh, he's not even going to try to wish me a happy birthday? I see how it is, Lodge. I see how it is. Ugh, I knew it. He hates me. They both hate me, and they're going to kill me when Alpha Donnelly is done talking to Lily. At just that moment, the door opened, and Beta Lodge put his phone away and the mug down. Liliana stepped out first, looking a lot calmer than I expected her to be, but she still looked a little sad. Alpha Donnelly followed, his rage gone. Lily walked over to me. "Will you help me pack?" I nodded with a sad smile, and the 4 of us walked next door to her house. Chapter 4. The 2 of us packed together silently, while the 2 intimidating wolves waited downstairs. When we were all done, I was about to bring the suitcase down when Lily stopped me. "Wait, here, Addie. Happy birthday." She smiled at me and then handed me a small bag. "I know it's not the best birthday, but know that I'm going to miss you so much." I looked at the gift and then at Lily before hugging her. "I'm going to miss you too." After a few minutes of reminiscing and procrastinating, we made our way downstairs. I looked at Lily, who had 2 large suitcases in her hand. "Adelaide." The gruff voice behind me startled me, and I quickly flipped around to see Beta Lodge staring at me impassively, almost bored-looking. "Beta Lodge?" I peered up at him. "Go pack." "Huh?" My eyebrows furrowed. Beta Lodge leaned down so he was a little bit closer. "Watch your tone," he growled. "Go pack. You are coming with me." "Oh, thank goodness. I thought you'd never choose a mate." Alpha Donnelly said under his breath. Beta Lodge just glared at him before turning back to me. Mate? Who is he calling a mate? Because it is not me. Not I, sir, never. What are you waiting for? He snapped. I jumped back a little before quickly walking out of the house to my own, my hands shaking a little out of fear. Okay, so he was calling me his mate. Good to know for future references. Addie! Liliana whispered my name. Wait up, I'll help you. Lily, I'm not entirely sure what just happened, but I do know that I am terrified of that man. He just chose you to be his mate. Interesting. I furrowed my eyebrows and slowly walked to my room. Addie, she trailed. Her voice was sad, and I was already miserable and confused. You know, neither one of us wants to be mated right now, so we could, I trailed off and looked at Lily, who was packing my makeup. We're not sneaking out the back door. She said it so firmly. I almost didn't know whether to believe it was her. Okay, but hear me out. It's just for ice cream. Then we'll be back in 30 minutes tops, and maybe they will have left, I suggested. Lily looked at me and narrowed her eyes. I could tell she was seriously considering it. It was 11 a.m. on a Saturday, one of the best times for ice cream, in my opinion. She let out a sigh. They would catch us so fast. While packing up my room, we both decided that it was nice that we weren't separated anymore. However, we also decided that both our mates were terrifying, and much to their disapproval, we still ended up sitting next to each other on the plane ride to Seattle. I'm not sure if I could handle a whole plane ride next to Beta Lodge. If I sat next to him for that long, I was sure I would explode with anxiety. He didn't seem like the most welcoming person, and neither of them let us say bye to our families. I had to settle for a note left on the kitchen counter and a call when we landed. Now, I've been on a plane before, but I've never been on a private one, where the whole thing was practically first class. I've never even flown first class. If I went somewhere, I always flew economy as I was only a warrior. I suppose being an alpha or beta had perks, but this was just pretentious. Who even serves steaks on a plane? I looked over at Alpha Donnelly, who was eating his lunch, and Beta Lodge was looking at paperwork. I then looked at Lily, who was sleeping, her head resting on my shoulder. She often used me as a human pillow. I think Alpha Donnelly was a little jealous, because when I looked back over at him, he was glaring at the spot where my shoulder and her head connected. When he caught me staring, he gave me a slight sneer. I put my head down, but Lodge gave a warning growl, and when I dared to peer up at them, the two men were glaring at each other. They must have a great friendship. Chapter 5. We landed, and I was led to one car while Lily was led to a different one. Both were sleek and black and obviously luxurious. I got into the passenger seat and rolled down the window to breathe in the fresh air for just a little bit longer before pulling out my phone to text my family and then Lily. Both of us were slightly scared and hungry because we didn't eat on the plane. Beta Lodge sat in the driver's seat and began driving to who knows where. I rolled up the window and continued to text Liliana. Ask him where you're going. Nah, I'll pass. Just do it. He won't hurt you. If Alpha Donnelly didn't hurt me, then he won't hurt you. Also, when he was talking to me about his pack, he mentioned how the wolves who abused the mate were all taught a lesson, or something like that. Fine, but if I do end up dead, I'm blaming you. I put my phone away and looked over at the next person. So, where are we going, Beta Lodge? Home. Geez, his voice is so coarse but smooth. It could easily command a room, but I suppose it could be soothing, if he really tried to be. I rechecked my phone to see a text from Lily. Should I ask him why he chose me? I smiled. Do it. I dare you. Only if you do it too and tell me what he says. I internally groaned and looked out the window. The dark green trees blurred with the speed of the car, and I bit my lip. Should I do it? Yeah, sure, I'm incredibly impulsive, but I'm never stupid. I didn't have a death wish. Do it, wimp. I clenched my fist and turned my head back towards him. Why did you choose me? The tension that I felt in the car was so thick you could cut it and spread it on your bagel. His jaw clenched before he answered. I need an heir to be the next beta. He needs to be strong, and I can tell you are strong. The Luna also likes you, and as a beta female, your main task will be to help protect the Luna. So he needs a pup. A male pup. I was supposed to be the mother of these pups. We had just met this morning, and he was already talking about children. Most people waited until at least the second or third year of dating. Maybe in the first year, if you really liked each other, protecting Lily wouldn't be that hard. We were already pretty protective of each other. Whenever we went to a party, we always left together and never let each other get involved with the male wolves there. Eventually, We parked in the driveway of what I assumed was his house. It was large for one person, and would be large for two people. I could only guess that Alpha Donnelly's house was bigger, because he was an alpha. The car door opened for me, and holding it open was an impatient-looking Beta Lodge. I quickly stepped out of the car, mumbling a thank you. He grabbed my suitcases from the trunk and walked to the front door. I didn't follow right away, but looked at my surroundings. The house was situated on a high hill that overlooked a small neighborhood, which I assumed was the Pack. Not far in the distance was an even higher plateau with a large house on top of it. The driveway that we had just entered through had a dense forest on either side. It covered a large portion of the land. Adelaide. My head snapped back towards the door where he was, and my bags were gone from sight. I hurriedly went to him, and he gestured for me to go inside the house. Almost instantly, a loud barking sound filled my ears, and a large Rottweiler was in front of me, snarling. Beta Lodge let out a dominating growl, and the dog whined. He's not used to new people. His name is Zeus. I stared at the beautiful dog in front of me. It's all right, I said, and then bent down to scratch its ear. Zeus started wagging his tail and panting happily at me. Beta Lodge just let out a grunt. Your bags are in my room. Unpack your stuff in the closet next to mine, then do as you please. And then he left. Chapter 6. His bedroom was dark and large, like the rest of the house, and probably like his soul. The king-sized bed was placed in the middle of the room and covered in black silk sheets. My bags were placed at the foot of it, and I went to unpack. There were 2 doors on the right wall. I opened the first one, and it was filled with suits and smelled strongly of cologne. This might be just me being weird, but I took a deep breath. I loved the smell of cologne, and even though I was terrified of Beta Lodge, I had to admit he smelled really good. I closed the door and tried the next one. Finding an empty closet that I assumed was now mine, I began unpacking. This house was huge for just one person and a dog. He must get really lonely. He easily could have found a mate at the ceremony. I'm sure there were prettier she-wolves than me to choose from. Beta Lodge was an attractive man, and maybe I would feel more comfortable around him if he actually cracked a smile every once in a while. He seemed so painfully serious, and I can barely take situations seriously. Or so I've been told. I finished packing and then decided to shower because the plane ride made me feel icky. I grabbed an outfit and found a bathroom. I turned the water on to the hottest setting that I could handle and stepped into it. The temperatures were getting colder, and the oncoming winter excited me. I loved the cold, and I especially loved Christmas. I hoped this Christmas would be fun, but I doubt he'd let me see my family. I finished my shower and got dressed. I let my dark, wet hair dry naturally, and I looked at myself in the mirror after I had finished my makeup. My mother was Korean, and my father was Caucasian, which created me a confusing mix. My skin was naturally pale, and my hair was black like my mother's. I take after my mother a lot, but I have my dad's nose and facial structure. My body was surprisingly curvy. Before I hit puberty, I was an actual twig. I wasn't nearly as curvy as Liliana. One could only wish for those curves. My figure was more athletic. Overall, I had an hourglass shape thanks to my mother, and my legs were muscled from my daily runs in my human form. I exited the bathroom and went back to the closet. I pulled a lollipop out of my bag and twirled it in my fingers to read the flavor. I was a sucker for cherry-flavored lollipops. Pun intended. I popped the candy in my mouth and then went downstairs, where Zeus was lying on the couch. At my arrival, he excitedly started running over to me. I played with him for a while before sitting on the couch. Zeus lay next to me, resting his head on my lap. I checked the time on my phone and saw Lily had tried to call me while I was in the shower. I called her again, and her groggy voice answered the phone. Hello? Her voice had a sluggish familiarity. Were you taking a nap? No, it's fine. I called earlier to make sure you were okay. I am. Are you okay? Yeah, I can finally relax because Alpha Donnelly went to the office. Same. Beta Lodge left a while ago. I'm not sure when he'll be back. Honestly, I kinda wish he wouldn't come back anytime soon. Being alone was nice right now. A lot had happened today. I suppose I was so caught up that I forgot today was still my birthday. Donnelly said he'd be back around 5, so Lodge might be back around the same time. What time is it now? 4:50. Oh, geez. I heard the door opening on the other line, and Alpha Donnelly's unmistakable voice mumbling something. The phone call was quickly cut short as Lily rushed a goodbye and then hung up. Deeply sighing, I stood up from the couch and walked over to the large glass doors that led to a balcony. Under the balcony, I could see a large pool with a covering over it, and a 4-person hot tub, which I'm sure only one person has used. That one person was now opening the door. I turned around as he walked in. My eyes traveled to his face, and instantly twisted into concern. He was only 23, but he looked so much older. The stress was evident on his face, and the bags under his eyes put mine to shame. Being the beta to one of the most feared alphas must be tiring. It must be even more tiring if it was said to be just as feared as him. When he saw me, his shoulders visibly relaxed a tiny amount, and he walked over to me. "Turn around and close your eyes." I did as I was told, and when the cold metal touched my neck, my eyes widened as I thought he was about to hurt me, but I looked down and didn't see a knife. Instead, there was a delicate gold chain necklace. It lay just above my collarbone, and in delicate cursive, the pendant spelt out, Gabriel. "Gabriel?" I asked. "My name is Gabriel." I didn't say anything as I turned around to face him. I looked down at it and held it gently with my thumb and pointer finger. "Happy birthday, Adelaide." His face was as hard as when I had first met him, but his eyes didn't hold the same coldness they once did. They were a little warmer. A little. I offered him a small smile. "Thank you, Beta Lodge." He clenched his jaw and let out a deep breath before speaking, shivers running down my spine. "Gabriel. Call me Gabriel." Chapter 7. The rest of my birthday was spent with Gabriel asking me what I wanted for dinner. He let me choose because it was my birthday. I told him I just wanted a pizza, so we ordered in and then ate it in awkward silence. Afterwards, he mentioned that I cooked dinner for him every night and how he needed it by the time he got home, which was usually around 6. I almost threw hands, but I wasn't going to fight it. I was a wimp, and I didn't dare start an argument with him. Besides, cooking would give me something to do when I wasn't talking to Lily. He told me I couldn't leave the house by myself, and I could only go with Liliana if I wanted to do something. I think the part that I found the most weird was the fact that he told me all of this with a large slice of pepperoni pizza in his hand and a stone-hard stare. How could he look so normal? He then ate the entire slice in 3 bites, and then he ate the whole pizza, leaving 2 slices for me. Currently, I am washing the dishes. The necklace he gave me was still around my neck, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was awfully nice for someone like him. I had heard that 3 rogues had trespassed on Alpha Donnelly's land, and Gabriel eliminated them on his Alpha's order. Alpha Donnelly then reportedly took the bodies to their families and eliminated them as well. Right now, Gabriel was upstairs, getting ready to sleep, probably. My stomach dropped when I realized I had to share a bed with him. "He won't." Lily said he wouldn't. "It'll be fine. I'll stay on my side, and he can stay on his." I finished up and got myself ready for bed while he was in the closet changing, and after a few cold stares toward me, the lights were off, and he was on the bed. I was practically falling off, but it was my choice to be so close to the edge. If he got any closer, I thought he might cry. Not to my surprise, he fell asleep quickly, and the only sound was his breathing. He was obviously exhausted, as evidenced by the stress on his face and the bags under his eyes. He was also obviously not accustomed to sharing a bed with someone, as he stretched his arms and turned over onto his stomach. I caught a glimpse of his abs in the moonlight, and I raised my eyebrows. "Oh, so he's in shape." His large, muscled arm fell on top of me, and I stared at him as his heat seeped into my chest. Why is he so warm? He looked so different sleeping. A lot younger and more peaceful. Almost cute, but still kinda terrifying. After a while, he didn't move, and I realized I wouldn't be able to sleep like that even though I really wanted to. I had never shared a bed with a male wolf before, let alone a powerful male wolf. Ever so carefully, I held my breath and moved his arm from me and switched my body with a pillow. I stood up from the bed and, as quietly as I could, I left the room to walk downstairs. My bare feet slowly hit the wooden floors, and I hoped desperately it wouldn't creak. I padded my way to the couch and looked behind me to make sure he wasn't there. The coast is clear. I lay down on the couch and closed my eyes. Zeus moved up from his spot and rested his body on the part of the couch by my feet. I don't know how much time passed, but I vaguely remember being hoisted up from the couch and being held bridal style into a warm, broad chest. Instinctively, I snuggled into it, and a low growl emitted from him. But it was more like a purr, like he enjoyed it. Gabriel placed me back on the bed and slowly put the covers over me, and then he placed an arm around my waist, and my back was pressed against his chest. I was scared, but the butterflies in my stomach disagreed. I could feel my cheeks get warm, and I'm sure if you turned on the light, I was probably as red as a lobster. His iron grip kept me from moving any further away, so I just decided to relax and press my back further into his chest, snuggling him for warmth. Gabriel let out another purr, and I found myself falling asleep in his arms. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed. Gabriel then walked out of the closet in a white dress shirt and black slacks. He was holding his matching suit jacket and tie, trying to button his top button with one hand. I pushed the covers off me and knelt on the edge of the bed. I gestured him over to me, and he slowly walked over. "Here," I whispered, and buttoned the button for him. I then grabbed the black tie that was draped over his arm and carefully tied it for him. He was watching my every move, stunned, but he kept his calm exterior. When I finished tying his tie, I rested my palms on his hard chest, and he sucked in a harsh breath. I looked up and saw his eyes staring at mine. I took a deep breath, and his strong cologne filled my nostrils. "You smell nice." His eyes widened a little bit before he quickly turned around and went into his closet. I saw him shuffling around for a little bit before he came back out, holding a large gray sweatshirt. He held it out to me, and after a few breaths, I realized it also smelled like his cologne. "You can have it. If you go out, you have to wear it or the necklace. This is how people will know you are mine." His hoarse voice sent a shiver down my spine as I took the sweatshirt from him and blushed at it. Then he quickly put his hand around the back of my head and tilted my head up so he could press his lips to mine. The kiss lasted less than a second before he left the bedroom, and then the house. Chapter 8. I picked up my phone to call Lily and ask if she wanted to go shopping with me. After Gabriel left, I went downstairs to get breakfast, only to find the cupboards empty. There was some food, but it was mainly uncooked burgers or steak. There were some eggs, but if I were going to cook dinner for this man and myself, I would need more than meat and eggs. "Hey, Addie, do you want to go to the store with me? I feel like we should go on an adventure." "Do you even know where the store is?" "It's somewhere in the town shops down there, and besides, they're not here to get mad at us. Their office is down there. But they won't know that we're down there." The phone was silent for a few minutes. "I am really bored already, so I don't see why not." "Yes, thank you. Also, I'm supposed to be with you wherever I go?" "Yeah, I'm supposed to, protect you." She let out a laugh. "No shade towards you, but we have the same strength. I'm not really sure what good you protecting me would do." I shrugged my shoulders, even though she wasn't there. She had a point, however. We were roughly the same size. "I'll pick you up in an hour?" "Sounds good." We said our goodbyes, and then I went up the stairs to shower and get ready. I decided just to wear the necklace and not the hoodie for today. Even though it smelled really nice, I still felt weird wearing his clothing. I mean, we had only met the day before. I clasped the gold chain around my neck and stared at it in the mirror. Ever since our lovely conversation this morning, I had concluded that Gabriel didn't give me the necklace out of kindness, but more out of possessiveness in his nature. The necklace was the show that I belonged to him, a mark before he actually marked me. I shivered at the thought of Gabriel marking me, sinking his canines into my neck and forever making me his. "Get a grip, Addie." I shook off the thought and went to pick up Lily. It felt like it had been ages since I last saw her. I drove to Alpha Donnelly's house, and she instantly opened the front door and ran into the car. She didn't seem any different, but she did smell a bit different. "What cologne is that?" I asked and looked at her. A blush tinged her cheeks. "It's Caden's cologne. He made me spray it on my scrunchie." I wiggled my eyebrows at the escalation in their relationship. "Caden?" She gave a knowing look. "You're wearing Gabriel around your neck. You can't say anything," and then buckled her seatbelt. I felt my own cheeks heat up a little, and she smirked at me. I drove to the small town below, and Lily looked at all the buildings through the window. Mainly, it was just townhouses, but after a few turns, we found the shops. Pack members were walking around, working, or just living their lives. After a few more minutes of driving, we came to what we thought was a park, but then we looked a little closer in the distance and realized it was a training ground. I looked a little closer and saw Alpha Donnelly and Gabriel. They were both still in suits, looking as stern and bright as ever, watching the warriors train with straight faces, occasionally turning into distaste or disappointment if one wolf didn't have the proper form. "Okay, I know they look good, but can we stop staring because I'm really hungry?" Lily's words broke me out of my trance, and I turned the car around to find parking by the grocery store. We walked inside and started our mission to stock up our pantries. "Do you think he's a romaine lettuce or iceberg lettuce type guy?" I asked her, holding the leafy vegetables in my hands. "Iceberg." She nodded, and then picked up a bag of apples. We walked around the store, taking note of what we would need, our shoes clicking against the linoleum floor. No one else was in there besides the people who worked there, so it was quiet except for us. "So, do you know what you're going to do for your wedding?" Lily asked. I stopped walking, and my grasp on the cart tightened. I felt my stomach sink. I had no idea what she was talking about, and I think the horror I felt inside manifested on my face because Lily's eyes widened at my expression. "Don't tell me you didn't know." I didn't respond and just continued to stare at her with wide eyes. "Oh my goddess, Addie, I didn't know he didn't tell you yet. Caden told me back at the house when we were in your dad's office." "What do you mean married?" I asked. I knew what she meant, but I didn't realize at the same time. "In 2 weeks, you're going to marry Beta Lodge, and then the day after, I'm going to marry Caden," she said cautiously. She looked at me with concern all over her pretty features. Deep down, I knew this was going to happen. Marrying in front of the pack was a tradition in the Agrios Pack, and many other packs, for the Beta and Alpha. It was a sign of power to show that they were stronger now, having found a mate. Because in the werewolf reality, no one is complete without a mate. If you are not complete, you cannot reach your full potential. But in 2 weeks? "It's going to be okay, though. We have each other," Liliana said encouragingly, and I smiled at her. "I mean, I knew it was going to happen. It's just a lot of commitment. It makes it seem so real." "Yeah, I know what you mean." Lily looked down and started playing with her fingers. She was just as nervous as I was. Chapter 9. We finished up shopping pretty quickly, and then loaded the bags in the car. We were both pretty quiet after the whole marriage talk. Marrying Gabriel didn't seem real to me. Having someone so closed off as a husband and mate seemed impossible. It also didn't help that I was only 18 and 1 day old. I drove Lily back to her house and helped her unload her groceries. And during that process, we made more plans for me to pick her up again that same day and walk around the town. Both of us wanted to familiarize ourselves with the pack. Not to mention, it was a beautiful day outside. The sun was shining brightly in the blue sky, and even though the cold nipped at our skin, it was still nice. After putting the groceries away in Gabriel's kitchen, Lily and I parked in town and then started to walk around, each of us lost in our thoughts. Even before we were chosen, we would tend to do this a lot. We just hang out at each other's houses, not really talking but being comfortable in each other's presence. I severely missed those days at home. Lily screamed, and my trance was broken. I looked at her and saw her being pulled into a small alley by a man. She struggled and thrashed in his arms, trying to get away. I went up to help, but my arms were pulled behind me painfully, and I let out a whimper of pain. "Look, we have the Beta female and the Luna all to ourselves," the man behind me sneered. I screamed at the top of my lungs, as did Lily. I struggled and struggled before I picked up my foot and kicked it up behind me. My assailant let me go, clutching his groin with both hands, pain written on his face. He cursed. I pulled the other man off Liliana, and he turned around, backhanding me. Pain seared in my cheek as I fell to the ground. I reached up to touch my face and hissed. My hand came in contact with a bloody cut. My vision doubled slightly, but it went back to normal after a few seconds. I stood back up, shakily, and saw the same man slap Lily. Rage flared within me, and I pulled the man off again. However, this time, before he could do anything, I pulled him towards me by his shirt and punched him as hard as I could. He hit the brick wall with a thud, and the other man watched his partner collapse. Liliana then kneed him in the stomach, bringing him to his knees. I clenched my aching fist and doubled over. The pain in my face and hand roared like a hot fire. Geez, that really hurt. What was his face even made out of? Bricks? I looked at Liliana as tears started to prick at my eyes. I don't want to be overdramatic, but I think my hand is broken. Goddess Addie, it's only day 1 of being mated to them, and look. She gestured to the mess around us. The one man I had punched was holding his head out from hitting his head on the building, and the other was still doubled over in pain. Liliana looked like she wanted to cry, too. She looked completely overwhelmed and in pain from her bruised cheek, and I couldn't blame her. Is your cheek okay? I asked her, concerned. She shrugged her shoulders and looked down, probably too stressed to answer. I looked at my hand and tried to move it, but I ended up just hissing in pain. A terrifying roar made me look up, and Lily looked behind her. Fear filled me, and before I knew it, Gabriel and Alpha Donnelly were in front of us. Each grabbed one man and swiftly dealt with them. I had to look away, and the sounds of the fight made me clench my eyes shut and put my hands over my ears. When there was silence, I slowly turned around again and met Gabriel's eyes. His suit was disheveled, and he looked absolutely livid. I had to look down again and submit as he stared at me. Frightened didn't even begin to describe how I felt with him in front of me just now. I was literally shaking, and it wasn't because of the cold. I held my bruised hand with the other and slowly looked at Gabriel once more, expecting to see fury or annoyance in his eyes, but instead he looked concerned. His eyebrows furrowed together as he looked at my face and hand. His eyes then flicked to the two men on the ground, and he grabbed both men by their collars. "What happened?" Alpha Donnelly asked, his authority echoing through the small alleyway. He too was disheveled. Lily just ran up to him and wrapped his arms around him, ignoring his disheveled shirt. He looked as shocked as I felt. He slowly wrapped his arms around her, and my heart warmed at the sight, but his face turned back to stone cold. He looked towards my own mate. "Throw the men away," he commanded, and Gabriel left, dragging a man in each hand, and the Alpha Donnelly's gaze was on me. He gave me a curt nod, and I realized that it was the closest thing to a good job I would get from him. Lily unwrapped her arms and then backed away, her face red. I walked up to her, still shaking and still holding my hand. She looked at it sympathetically. "How bad does it hurt?" she asked me. I shrugged my shoulders, but really, if I said anything more, I would break and burst into tears. It hurt a lot, and the stinging in my cheek didn't help. "Don't cry, Addie, don't you dare." "Wimp. Both of you go home. Now." I let out a shaky breath. "Yes, Alpha." I drove Lily home with one hand, and then to Gabriel's home. I went inside the house alone and scared. Zeus ran up, excitedly, and I petted his head. "Geez, I'm still shaking." I carefully pulled off my coat and went to the kitchen sink to run warm water over my hands. I heard the door open again, and I jumped at the sound. "Christ, Addie, pull yourself together." I turned around slowly to see Gabriel looking at me. His eyes narrowed. Chapter 10. I hold my breath and wait for him to lash out. His fists are bruised from dealing with our attackers, and his white dress shirt has spots of red all over it. To my surprise, he turns around and walks upstairs. I stare at his large, retreating form and let out a deep breath that I was holding. I turn off the warm water, and my hand begins to sting with pain again. Apparently, punching someone in the face is very painful for both parties. I didn't know that. Also, in my moment of fear and anger, I had forgotten to keep my thumb out of my fist. I was stupid and impulsive, but even an idiot like me knows that it's incorrect to have your thumb inside your fist when you punch. By now, my hand was a nasty shade of purple, and if I even put my finger on the bruise, pain seared throughout the whole limb. My eyes flicked to Gabriel, who was talking down the stairs, first aid kit in hand. He had taken off his tie and jacket, and his sleeves were rolled up to his elbows. He sat down on the couch, and then gestured to me. "Come here." His voice was gruff and commanding as usual. I dried my hand gently, and then walked over to sit on the couch. I chose a spot about 2 feet away from him and then peered up at his handsome face. I saw his jaw clench before he reached out to me and swiftly placed me on his lap. His own, bruised and scarred hands grabbed my injured one and began inspecting the injury. "Did you punch him with your thumb in your fist?" My lips thinned into a line before responding. "Yeah." He rolled his eyes and shook his disapprovingly before grabbing the gauze. He gently wrapped up my hand so that it felt secure and so that I didn't feel like it would fall apart if I let go of it. When he was done with my hand, he wiped the blood off my cheek. Occasionally, I hissed in pain because he was applying too much pressure, but he never stopped. "You should not hit people with a closed fist. You are too small for that. If you need to hit someone, hit them with an open hand." He looked at me seriously before grabbing the television remote and turning it on to the hockey game. Gabriel watched the game in silence, not letting me move from his lap. I wouldn't say I was uncomfortable because it was nice being held by him, especially after today. I just felt a little awkward. His knuckles were scraped, and his shirt was permanently stained with it, most likely. My eyes kept flicking from his hands around my waist to medical supplies on the coffee table, and before I knew it, I pulled his arms off me. Gabriel let out a warning growl, but I quickly reached for an alcohol-soaked pad and grabbed one of his large, rough hands with my much smaller ones. I didn't realize it before, but his hands were quite large and strong, with only a little veininess. I had always been a fan of such hands, but now was not the time. This is not the time to get distracted by his strong man hands. "Addie, he's hurt." I furrowed my eyebrows as I lightly dabbed his knuckles with the cloth until it was clean, and then did the same with the other hand. His silver eyes never left my face, and I'm sure if you put me next to the tomatoes I had bought that day, you wouldn't see a difference. When I was done, I held the blood-stained rag in my hand and looked at the time. "Don't you have to go back to work?" I asked. He grunted before responding. Alpha Donnelly took the rest of the day off to be with the Luna. Oh, I really hoped Lily was okay. She looked extremely distraught, and in all my life, I don't think I've ever seen her so stressed. Looking over to the TV, I checked the time. It was only 4, but if I start now, dinner will be ready a little before 6. Additionally, I would have had time to eat something before I started cooking, as I hadn't eaten at all that day. Before we were distracted, Lily and I were walking to one of the cafes to get a late lunch, but it never happened. I went to get up from Gabriel's lap, but he growled and pulled me back down. I plopped back onto his legs with a squeal and then looked at him. "Where are you going?" "I was going to make dinner," I responded quietly, and his grip slowly fell away from my waist. I got up and quietly padded to the kitchen to make food for him and myself. When I was done, after about 2 hours of cooking, I looked back into the living room. Gabriel had changed out of his clothes into a black t-shirt and gray sweatpants. His hair was still neatly placed, and he was staring at the TV screen with an angry expression. Before I had to say anything, his face turned towards mine. His face softened to its everyday, stone-cold look before he turned off the TV and walked briskly past me to the dining room table. I placed a large steak in front of him with mashed potatoes and steamed broccoli in front of him, and he nodded at it, pleased. He'd better be pleased. Truthfully, I didn't really know how to cook, and the only reason the steak smelled good was because of all the tasty videos I had watched frantically in the kitchen. The only thing I could remember was tteokbokki, and while I did pick up ingredients to make it, I wasn't sure how he felt about ethnic cuisine. He gulped the food, finishing the entire plate in 20 minutes. Never in my life have I witnessed someone eat as fast as him. Doesn't he get heartburn? "It was good," he tells me, and then puts the plate, along with his fork and knife, in the dishwasher. I do the same with my plate. He walks upstairs, and instead of following him, I plop on the couch and turn on a random movie. Is this what my life would be like now? Protecting Lily and me from unsavory people and then making Gabriel dinner while he washes the remnants of his enemies off him like nothing happened? Because I don't know if I am cut out for it. Gabriel comes back down and sits on the couch, watching silently with me. He pulls me back on his lap, and his hands rest on my waist. Once again, the intimate position makes my cheeks heat up. He looked up at me, to my bruised cheek. "You've been with me for only 1 day, and you were already hurt," he said thickly, and then let out a frustrated sigh. "You're too nice to be with me. You're too soft." Concern creased his features, and I looked at him with wide eyes. What's wrong with being soft? My voice felt so small compared to his, and I felt small pressed against his firm build. I didn't really know what he meant by soft. "You shouldn't have to deal with being mated to someone like me. I've done terrible things, Adelaide. Alpha Donnelly has a lot of enemies, which means I have a lot of enemies. I'm busy most of the time dealing with those enemies with him." His silver eyes looked into mine. "You should be with someone more like you, but I'm selfish and want you all to myself." I felt tingles in my stomach, and I looked down at my lap, playing with my fingers. His grip on my waist had tightened, but not uncomfortably so. I stayed silent, not really knowing what to say. Zeus brushed by, and I couldn't help but smile and pet his head. Gabriel growled. "That dog gets your attention more than I do." His grip tightened again. "Technically, we're all dogs." I shrugged. I regretted the words the moment I said them. Why can't I take anything seriously? Am I sick? Do I have a head injury? One of his hands let go of my leg, and he used his finger to bring my gaze up to him, his face as serious as ever. "We are werewolves, not dogs. And even so, I want your attention all to myself. Like I said, I'm selfish, and I don't like to share." The laughter that ripped out of me shocked me and him, but I couldn't hold it back. My head tilted back, and I laughed at the large man. "Are you jealous of a dog?" I giggled, and he clenched his jaw. "Stop laughing at me." I tried to control myself by biting my lip, but giggles kept slipping through. Gabriel let out a warning growl, and I rested my forehead on the exposed couch between his head and shoulder. I'm sorry. I calmed myself down, but a smile continued to tease at my lips. This huge man was jealous of a dog, and all because I liked to pet him. Gabriel let out a sigh. "It's fine. It's nice not having you afraid of me anymore." Chapter 11. After the whole men trying to attack Lily and me incident, things had been pretty smooth. Gabriel and I fell into an awkward, but comfortable routine. I would tie his tie in the mornings when he left for work, and then go back to sleep because he leaves for work at 4 a.m. Workaholic. Then I would get ready to hang out with Lily. Then, when Gabriel got home, I would make dinner. And sometimes I'd sit on his lap while he watched hockey or watch a movie on his phone upstairs by myself. It had been a week after the incident, and my hand was still hurting. My cheek had healed slightly, as had Lily's, but my hand still aches when I move it. Right now, I am walking to the hot tub in my large, fluffy robe. I had just finished cleaning the dishes, and I wanted to relax. I slipped off my robe, revealing my dark blue bikini, and carefully stepped into the steaming water. It was very chilly out, but that's what made the hot water all the better. Gabriel still hadn't mentioned our wedding, which was supposed to take place in a week or so, but he had mentioned Lily and Alpha Donnelly's. I guess I should ask, but I didn't know when. I had gotten more comfortable with Gabriel. He would hold me every single night, and to be honest, it was nice. The night was cold, but his arms were warm, and I welcomed the warmth of his touch. He must be very lonely, having to work all the time. I wasn't complaining, though. Even though we had only known each other for a short time, I was beginning to like him. I thought it was cute how he got protective and how he gets jealous of Zeus. We had gotten to know each other a little better, but I was for sure not ready to marry him. I closed my eyes and sank deeper into the water, trying to relax my tense muscles. The idea of marrying such a stoic man made me anxious. I opened my eyes to splashing. Gabriel's large form sat on the other side of the tub, before he naturally pulled me onto his lap and into his pale, broad chest. This man was actually built like a Greek god. My cheeks warmed at how close we were. This was the first time I saw his full tattoo, and I studied it through the water. It was a forest with the full moon, and in it were 2 wolves. I wondered who they were. Maybe his parents? What if his parents were at the wedding? What if they hated me? I furrowed my eyebrows and looked up at him. He was staring at the fading cut and bruise on my cheek. "Are we getting married?" I blurted out. He looked at me for a few seconds before regaining his composure. "I knew I forgot to tell you something. It's in 1 week, and then the day after is the Alpha and Luna's wedding." The disrespect. Who forgets their own wedding? I raised my eyebrows and slightly pulled away. "If you expect me to plan a whole wedding in 1 week..." "Adelaide," he growled and cut me off. "All you need to do is pick a white dress and show up. The pack members take care of it." I looked down, embarrassed. "Oh, even though I'm not the Alpha, there are perks to being Beta," he says, and I look up at him with a questioning look. I study the heavy eye bags under his eyes, and I remember the scars on his hands and chest. My hands hesitantly reach up to caress his face, and my thumb lightly touches the dark circles under his eyes. His body stiffens, and he watches my every move. "Aren't you tired? You should take care of yourself," I whispered and then pursed my lips. He leaves for work so early in the mornings, and he doesn't go to sleep until 11 p.m. He lets out a deep sigh. Working for Alpha Donnelly isn't supposed to be easy, but knowing that I help him run the most respected pack in the country helps with the work. Respected? Sure, but also feared. "Don't you ever feel alone?" I peered up at him through my eyelashes. "I was always working with Alpha Donnelly, so no." "Not really," he answers, but then looks at my neck, where his name resides in gold. "Sometimes at night, but now I have you." My lips twitch up in a smile, and his face has the ghost of a smile on it. In that moment, he looked a lot younger. I felt his hand slowly pushing my face to his, and I didn't fight it. He slowly pressed his lips to mine, and for the first time, I actually enjoyed his kisses. Usually, he would be rough and grab the back of my head, pressing his lips to mine, to show people that I was his, to mark me. But this time, it was different. It was slow and intimate. I pulled away and bit my lip, to which he gave a low growl, and I pressed my lips to his again. He adjusted me on his lap and I complied. Needing to breathe, I pulled away again, and a cold breeze flew by. I shiver and close my arms around myself. "We should go back inside." I nodded my head and moved off Gabriel. With lightning speed, I was out of the tub and wrapped in my fluffy towel once again. Gabriel just shook his head at me with a straight face, but I saw a glint of happiness in his eyes before he started walking to the house. I followed him, and he didn't seem to care that we were dripping everywhere. We both showered in separate bathrooms, and afterwards, I was downstairs, eating a bowl of ice cream. I had texted Lily if she wanted to go wedding dress shopping with me, and of course, she said yes. Gabriel came down in a gray shirt and black sweatpants, his tattoo peeking through the collar and his hair damp. He looked at my half-eaten bowl of vanilla ice cream. "It's cold outside." I looked up at him and furrowed my eyebrows. "I know it's cold outside. I was there with him. Outside. You're eating ice cream when it's cold outside." I shrugged. Ice cream is universal. He didn't respond and grabbed a beer from the fridge. "Why do you want me?" I asked. "Goddess Addie, Do you ever shut up? He looked at me and sat down. I need pups and you're strong. So, that's it? I mean, look at you. You could have chosen someone better. I furrowed my eyebrows and stirred my ice cream. Adelaide! He let out a warning growl, but I continued. I just don't understand. I finished and then looked at him. Gabriel set his beer down and walked up to me. He made me face him and used his finger to lift my gaze. I chose you because I wanted you, not just for pups. In reality, the thought of you giving you attention to anyone but me drives me crazy. Are you jealous of an unborn child? I bit my lips to hold in a giggle. Don't laugh, he deadpanned. A laugh escaped my way, and I had to pull away from him. He growled in frustration before returning to his beer. I'm sorry. Please don't be mad. I smiled at him. He just shook his head. The rest of the night went by quickly. I finished my ice cream, and Gabriel finished his beer. Now we had just gotten into bed, and I finished plugging in my phone. I turned off the light, and soon enough, his arms were wrapped around me. I was almost asleep, but his deep voice cut through the silence and sent a shiver down my spine. You're more important to me than you realize. Chapter 12. The next morning was the same. I woke up to say goodbye to Gabriel. After I finished with his tie, he pulled his black leather wallet out of his pocket. I stared at him in confusion when he handed me a black American Express card. Use it to pay for your dress, he said gruffly, and then put his wallet back, still holding the card out to me. It's fine, I have my own money. Adelaide uses it. My money is your money. His voice softened a bit, and I looked down at the card. It still feels wrong, and this is very trusting of you. I don't even trust myself to touch it, I reply honestly. If I had something like that in my possession, I would flip out and then lose it after 10 seconds of having it. He clenches his jaw in annoyance and sets it on his nightstand. He looks back towards me before pressing his lips to mine. Use it, he commands, and I try not to whimper at his dominating voice. After he left, I went back to sleep. Around 9, I woke up to meet with Lily at 10. I got ready and then looked at the credit card on his nightstand. It was very trusting of him to leave that with me. Not because I was going to spend a lot of money, but because I lose things very easily. I'm a very forgetful person, and he basically just left me in charge of his bank. Begrudgingly, I took the card and slid it into my wallet. It was going to stay there until Gabriel got back, and I could give it to him. After eating breakfast, I then headed to Alpha Donnelly's house. Liliana was ready to leave, and she plopped herself inside the car. Both of us had large coats on because it was so cold, and I could see that the tip of her nose was a little red from the cold. Are you ready? I asked. I guess. How do you feel about it, though? Like the whole getting married thing? She says as she plugs in her phone for music. I mean, I'm not super okay with it, but it's fine, I guess. How about you? Lily just shrugged her shoulders. I mean, I like Caden, but it's so soon, you know. My grip on the steering wheel tightens. Yeah, I feel that. We pull up to the boutique, and I look at Lily. She didn't look sad, but she didn't look happy either. I guess we were both nervous. But I was a little sad. I thought that when we went to a bridal boutique together, we would be happy and cheerful, giggling like schoolgirls. Yet here we are, and I don't think either of us had smiled on the way here. The lady at the front greets us, automatically knowing who we are. She sets us up on one of the couches, and I smile at her kindness. I look at the mass of white dresses with an uneasy feeling in my stomach. I don't even know where to begin, I whisper to Lily. Everything is so white, she whispers back, equally as scared as I am. The lady at the front walks toward us. Did you guys need help? Yes, we respond simultaneously. She laughs and leads us to various sections of the store, each with a distinct style of dresses. After the grueling process of trying dresses on, which is a workout in itself, by the way, we had our final choices. We were walking out to pay when Lily nudged me. Dude, Caden gave me his card to use, but I don't want to use it. I don't want to use Gabriel's card. Do you think they'll get mad at us if we don't use them? I ask and look at her. We can just say that we forgot them at home, right? I feel like they know when we're lying, though. I look at the card in my wallet. Lily pouts before her eyebrows raise, and she looks at me. We'll just tell them that we felt bad. I won't use if you won't use it. I nod my head. Deal. We both paid using our own separate cards and then left. Now we were sitting in a cafe. I had a steaming cup of hot chocolate in front of me, and Liliana ordered a muffin and a vanilla latte. How are you and Alpha Donnelly? I asked. We're good. I mean, I do like him, don't get me wrong, but I'm only 18. We're only 18 and we've only known them for what, a week? And now we're getting married because of tradition. She sighs and looks down at her chocolate muffin, picking at it. I mean, you were trained to be a warrior and I was trained to be a beta. I can't be Luna. She shakes her head, and some of the pack members look over with wide eyes. They were shocked because their Luna didn't want to be Luna. It's going to be okay. If you ever need help, I'm here. I'm literally here to protect you, I said, giving her a reassuring smile. And I'm also your friend. We'll figure it out together. She gave me a grateful smile, but then furrowed her eyebrows. But how do you feel about being a beta female? I slowly looked around the cafe to see the pack members listening to our conversations and failing to be discreet about it. No doubt what we said today would be reported to Alpha Donnelly and Gabriel. It's not the same as Luna, and I guess it is a lot easier since my main duty is to protect you. I shrugged. And Gabriel, he's so serious all the time. Lily snorted. That must be hard for someone like you. I sipped my hot chocolate before a thought came to mind. Did Alpha Donnelly ever tell you about who attacked us? I asked. Lily shook her head. No. He was so angry he just mumbling and growling, but he did say rogues over and over. Huh. I made a mental note to ask Gabriel. If I was supposed to protect Lily and myself, I need to know who I am protecting us from. Did you notice that both the men that attacked us had matching rings? I placed my hot chocolate back on the table. It was the ring that had cut my cheek when one of them slapped me. Lily nodded her head and furrowed her eyebrows. Do you think we'll get attacked again? I bit my lip and thought about it. Ever since we had been attacked, I had been slightly on edge. I was jumpy and jittery, and every time Lily and I went somewhere public, I would get immediate anxiety. Maybe I'm not sure, though. I didn't really think there would be more after seeing what Gabriel and Alpha Donnelly did to the last two. They were barely recognizable. It was a terrible sight to behold. They hadn't used knives or guns. Both of them had just used their fists. The results were awful. I shuddered at the thought and sipped my hot chocolate again before a panicked scream filled my ears. Lily and I looked at each other with wide eyes and then towards the door when a pack member stumbled inside the cafe, bruised and bloody. Chapter 13. My foot was practically flooring the gas pedal as I tried to get us home as quickly as possible. The poor woman who the rogues had beaten said that they had a message before she looked directly at Lily and said, "Just wait." After that, she collapsed on the ground, probably from exhaustion or blood loss. I'm not sure if what she said was the message or if she was preparing herself to say it, but either way, it was a chilling sight. And if it was the message, those two words sent a chill down my spine. Just wait. What did that even mean? Pack members then shuffled to get Lily and me out of the cafe quickly, and here we are. I'm sure I was breaking the law with how fast I was going. Actually, I knew I was breaking the law. Going 40 miles per hour over the speed limit was sure to get me a ticket. But Lily was so shaken up, I wanted to get her away from that site as soon as possible. Very quickly, I pulled up in front of Alpha Donnelly's house. No, she shook her head. Can you take me to his office? I didn't argue with her and then started back to town, still basically flooring it. I had seen their office on the second day here, but I had never been inside it, and as far as I knew, neither had Liliana. Their office, also known as the Pack House, was where everyone with a high ranking worked. Even though it was called a house, it was actually an office building with 20 floors. I guess I had forgotten that the Agrios Pack was huge. I parked the car, and we both speed-walked inside. The man at the front desk looks at us with wide eyes before gesturing to the elevator. Top floor. How does everyone already know who we are? I'll text you, is all she says when we get to the top floor. Lily made a beeline for the office that says Alpha Donnelly's name, leaving me in the lobby. The gammas at their desks are looking at me, confused. I give them a tight smile before walking to the office, where Gabriel's name is on it, and gently knock on the door. Come in, his deep voice boomed through the door, and I slowly opened it and stepped into his office. His office was dark, like his house, and large. His dark mahogany desk was covered with papers, and he leaned back in his black leather chair to look at me. His jacket was thrown around his chair, and his sleeves were pulled up to his elbow. He looked so powerful right now, even if he was a beta. How is he so dominant? The front desk said that you and Luna are here, and that you both looked a little shaken. He got up from his desk and sat down on the small black couch that was near a fireplace and window, which had black curtains. I followed him and told him what happened at the cafe. He growled and clenched his fist, his arm muscles flexing under the thin white material of his shirt. Not the time, Addie, not the time. He stood up. Gabriel was angry. It wasn't hard to tell. Wait, Gabriel, they just rogues, right? It's not that bad, I said, my voice getting quieter and quieter. They're not just rogues, Adelaide. They were strong, which means they're forming a pack of their own. They won't have a true alpha, though, I pointed out. I should really learn to shut up sometimes. They still hurt a pack member, Adelaide. They could have hurt the Luna, if anything were to happen to the alpha female. He trailed off into silence. His bone-chilling growl broke the silence. It was low and guttural, and he clenched his fist, arms flexing once more, when he spoke. If anything were to happen to you, He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself down. Wait here, he commanded, and then left the office. I assumed he went to talk with Alpha Donnelly. I don't know how long I waited exactly, but I knew it was a long time. Lily didn't text me, and I guessed she was in the same situation as I was in. I stared at the raging fire in the fireplace, watching the flames dance. The sun was setting, and it was getting late. I yawned, and Gabriel walked back into his office, looking like he had aged 5 years because of stress. But he was still so handsome. What is it? I asked, and he sat down next to me on the couch. He just grunted. I didn't push the conversation any further. He was obviously stressed and looked like he didn't want to be disturbed. I was going to get up and say goodbye, but he lay down, his head on my lap. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Thank goodness, because I did not look good from that angle. My face flushed when I felt his soft hair on my thighs. My hands instinctively played with his hair, and he let out a low growl of relief. After a few minutes, he sat up and went back to his desk, looking over all the papers with a clenched jaw. He was angry. I did not want to be here when he was angry. I hated it when he was furious, mainly because he was scary when he was furious. I stood up. I'm gonna go. He let out a deep sigh as I pulled my coat from the chair in front of his desk. Wait. He grabbed my wrist to spin me around. He pulled me up to him, so my body was flush against his, and he looked down at me. I'm pretty sure my face was bright red. I like this outfit, he said lowly in my ear. I shivered and bit my lip. Thank you. He wrapped his arms tightly around my waist, and my arms draped around his neck as he pressed his lips to mine. I pulled away and lightly bit his lower lip. He let out a playful growl, and I giggled before he resumed kissing me again, tightening his grasp on me. I pouted when he pulled away. Be safe, he said sternly in my ear, and then let go of me. I walked out of the office to see Alpha Donnelly kissing Liliana, all the Gammas watching from their desks. He was showing that she was his, just like Gabriel had done with me. He let go of her and then walked back into his office, leaving her dazed. I held in a laugh and walked over to her. She looked at me and blinked a few times. Ready to go? I laughed. She nodded silently and followed me to the car. Chapter 14. After I got back home, I made Gabriel dinner and then waited for him to come home. What has my life come to? When he didn't come home after the first few hours, I packed the dinner away and then played with Zeus before turning on the TV. What would my life have been like if Gabriel hadn't chosen me? At my old pack, I'd have had more freedom, I guess. I'd be a pack warrior, and I'd live my everyday life. However, I thought I would be fighting crime and kicking butt, and yeah, I guess I was doing that with having to protect Lily. But Gabriel was so old-fashioned with the whole cook dinner for me thing. I understood that he had a lot of work to do, and I wasn't going to fight it. At least he did the dishes sometimes. But I desperately hoped, and I mean desperately hoped, that once we got married, he didn't just expect me to stay at home and start a family. I'd go along with marrying him, but there was no way I was getting pregnant at 18. I was barely ready to get married. Not even close to considering the possibility of being a mother. I was on birth control already for my periods, and I really hoped he didn't make me go off it. And with all this rogue stuff going on, I'm not even sure if it was the best idea. Even Lily is shaken up, and she is one of the strongest people I know. Stress can break people down and form cracks in their strong exterior. I wondered if Lily's life was the same way. I mean, Alpha Donnelly and Gabriel were from the same pack, so they were probably brought up the same way. Lily and I hadn't really talked about it, but I'm pretty sure she had to cook for Alpha Donnelly too, as did every other female in the pack for their own mate. Overall, cooking for Gabriel wasn't that bad. I mean, he did give me his entire credit card, and he looked so relaxed whenever he ate. Usually, he was so tense, and the fact that I could help him relax, even if just a little, made me feel better about the whole situation. Gabriel was a good man, and he was a good beta. He was just under a lot of pressure all the time. I stared out in space for a moment before a loud boom of thunder shook me out of my thoughts. I brought my head back to the show before checking the time. It was currently 11 p.m., and Gabriel still had not come home. I didn't text or call because we had not exchanged numbers yet, and I had no idea when he would be back. I don't even know why I was annoyed with him for not telling me that he might be home late. He probably had a lot of work to do, especially with today's events. But I couldn't help but be worried. The raging storm outside didn't help my anxiety. Usually, I loved storms, deafening ones. Like if there's a storm at night, I want the thunder to wake me up from my sleep. But Gabriel wasn't back, and I couldn't contact him. Around midnight, I switched off the TV and gave up waiting for him because my eyelids were getting too heavy. I gave Zeus a pat on the head before padding up the stairs. I had long since changed out of my outfit and was already in a pair of sweatpants and a hoodie. I pulled on my socks and then made sure the closet door was closed before getting into bed. People who slept with their closet door open scared me. As tired as I was, I couldn't sleep. I had gotten used to Gabriel being in bed with me. It was hard to sleep without him. Nonetheless, I forced my eyes shut, and just when I thought I was drifting off into dreamland, the door slammed shut, and I heard someone stumble. I just got comfortable. I pulled the covers off me and walked downstairs to see Gabriel in the kitchen eating a leftover bowl of pasta. He quickly finished it before placing it in the sink, but he stumbled a little on the way there. Is he okay? Gabriel? I called and looked at him with curious eyes. He looked at me and walked over to where I was standing. His black hair was a little damp from the rain, and so was his suit, but he had taken off his jacket and tie and thrown them on the couch. His broad, muscled chest was visible through his white dress shirt, but his tattoo looked like a giant black blob underneath. I realized that something was different. Gabriel smelled different. Are you drunk? I asked him. It made sense if he was. His eyes were slightly red, and his breath reeked of alcohol. I tried desperately to take the situation seriously, but my mind wandered to the one vine that said, just add 2 shots of vodka, and then it showed Kermit the Frog absolutely losing it on the dishwasher. I bit my lip to hold back a laugh, and he looked at me curiously, like a lost puppy, and my heart swelled. Alpha Donnelly needed to de-stress, and so did I. Like a bachelor party, kind of. Gabriel looked at me and then smiled. Like, actually smiled, with teeth and everything. I was so taken aback that I didn't even know what to do. One thing was for sure, though, and it's that this man was breathtaking. Usually, he was stoic and emotionless, but now he looked much younger. The smile died down to a smaller one, and he looked down at me. He grabbed my waist with one hand and then poked it with the other. I jumped back at the touch. All right, Bucko Lee. He cut me off with another prod to my waist. Soft, he mumbled. You need to sleep, I said, looking at his eye gags. He just grunted and then nodded before following me up the stairs to the bedroom. He got changed into sweat and a t-shirt before crawling into bed. You're too nice, he murmured. You put up with me and my nonsense, and then snuggled into me. I bit my lip. You're so soft and warm. He groaned and then nodded in approval before passing out. I couldn't help but smile at his prominent blacked-out figure. He was like a teddy bear, a huge, cuddly one. I had made it up in my mind that I liked drunk Gabriel. Chapter 15. 1 week later from the whole incident, and here I am. Lily helped button the back of my dress, and I looked at myself in the mirror with wide eyes. It didn't seem real. I didn't seem real. Lily finished the last button, and I quickly turned around so I wouldn't have to stare at myself anymore. You look amazing, she said, and then her eyes began to water, as did mine, but she lightly slapped my arm. You better not cry. Your makeup took me so long. I gave a half-hearted chuckle and then looked out the window of the venue. It was by the Pack, and Lily would be having her wedding tomorrow, just a few acres in a different building. Pack members were already seated in the pews, and Gabriel was standing at the end of the aisle. I felt butterflies in my stomach at the sight of him in a tuxedo. Jesus Christ. Tattoo peeking through the collar and black hair neatly placed. Oh my goodness. Alpha Donnelly was sitting in the front row, and next to him was an empty spot where Lily would sit. I didn't get any bridesmaids, and Gabriel didn't get any groomsmen. It would just be me and him up there, but I selfishly wanted Lily to stand behind me so that I would know she was there for moral support. You ready? We're 5 minutes late, Lily laughed. I mean, it was my wedding, and then it would be my wedding night. Did you and Alpha Donnelly mate yet? I asked. Her scent had changed, but I didn't want to assume, and it might have just been because she was living with him. She adjusted the neckline of her dress slightly to reveal the mark. Her cheeks went red. Yes. Are you scared? Do you want tips? Because I'm basically just as much a virgin as you are. I cut off her rambling. Liliana, it's completely fine. I just want to know if it hurt. My eyebrows furrowed, and I shuddered. Like a lot. She flinched at the memory. But Caden was gentle. And I see the way Gabriel looks at you. He really likes you, Addie. He'll take it slow if you ask him. I bit my lip and played with the hem of my white dress. But for real, are you ready to go? We're late. I nodded my head with a small smile. I hiked up my dress, in a not very ladylike way, and followed Liliana down the stairs to the doors that would lead me to my husband. She was about to knock on the door when she turned towards me with a shocked expression. I almost forgot. She pulled a simple silver wedding band out of her dress pocket and handed it to me. It was way too big to be mine, so I'm assuming it was Gabriel's. What he doesn't know won't hurt him. Now hush. She bit back a laugh and knocked on the door. It was moments like this where I was genuinely grateful for Lily. All in all, I went out of my wedding with the same idea I had about weddings before. They were long and tedious, but Gabriel's silver eyes kept me from falling asleep. He looked like he was over it, too, and I think he could tell I was. My only real complaint was that I could have done without the whole slicing of the palms and putting them together. However, there was a part that surprised me. When the werewolf, supernatural being part stuff was done, and it was a typical wedding, we exchanged rings. I gave him his simple silver band, which I assumed he picked out, and I was expecting one just like it. What I wasn't expecting was a rock the size of my pinky. And then when it came to the kiss the bride part, he kissed me on my forehead, which, in front of so many pack members, made my cheeks turn beet red. However, Gabriel looked over to Alpha Donnelly, who gave him a thumbs down and a smirk. Gabriel just rolled his eyes and pressed my lips to his before pulling away, and when I looked back at Alpha Donnelly, he had a thumbs up. Liliana was laughing. The reception itself was anticlimactic and was mainly just for show. It was now 11 p.m. and I was exhausted. My dress was heavy, and I wanted nothing more than for it to be off me. Gabriel was driving home right now, his hand on my dress-covered thigh. We pulled up to his house, and I quickly exited the car and ran inside. Gabriel chuckled behind me. I gave Zeus a quick pet before hiking up to the bedroom. I fiddled with the buttons on the back of my dress before sighing in defeat. There was no way I could do this on my own. Gabriel entered the room and took off his jacket and tie. He slipped out of his shoes and socks and kicked them in his closet lazily. He saw me struggling and gave me a slight, yet infuriating, smirk. "Do you need help?" I pouted and nodded. I didn't even care if he would see my underwear. He saw me in a swimsuit, so it was basically the same thing. Except this time it was lacy and white. I felt him come up behind me, and he quickly undid the buttons. Finally, I let my shoulders sag in relief as the heavy fabric hit the floor. No one told me that wedding dresses were so heavy. My relief was short-lived as my white lacy bra and underwear did nothing to protect me from the cold. Does this man not have a heater? I mean, for real, with all his money? He can't afford a heater? I shivered and wrapped my arms around myself. Warm arms enveloped me, and I instinctively relaxed into them. Gabriel pulled me to him, so my back was against his warm chest. He leaned down and I felt his breath on my neck, making me suck in a sharp one of my own. "You looked beautiful today," he murmured. "I couldn't take my eyes off you." "Thanks," I whispered. "I liked your tie." A laugh rumbled through his chest, and he turned me around. His smile disappeared, though, and I felt my heart sink. Oh no, did I say something wrong? It was the tie thing. Also, could I put on clothes? I was standing in my underwear in front of him, while he was in a shirt and pants. Is that a fair situation? I think not. "You also looked completely uninterested," he said. "Am I really that bad?" My eyebrows furrowed. Is that really what he thought? I know I'm a bad person. I know I've done terrible things. I don't deserve someone like you. You're too nice for me, but I thought... He trailed off before clenching his jaw. Shit. He let out a frustrated sigh. I thought that, maybe... Gabriel. I caressed the side of his face with one hand. I went on tiptoes and pressed my lips to his, and he instantly responded, wrapping an arm around my waist and the other on my upper back. I pulled away. I looked uninterested because it was super long. It was really long. He chuckled, and then kissed me again. I deepened it, and then pulled away, biting his lower lip. He let out an aroused, low growl, and whatever tiredness I had felt was thrown out the window and replaced with something much better. My breathing quickened, and the tuxedo I once admired on Gabriel, I suddenly started to look at with slight distaste. His clothes were now a barrier, and I wanted skin-on-skin contact. "I can smell your excitement." His voice was low and throaty, and he began to undo the buttons on his shirt. He quickly threw it off before forcefully kissing me again. I pressed my body to his, desperate for touch. "Are you sure you're ready?" he asked and looked into my eyes. Honestly, I had no idea if I was, but I nodded yes anyway. He growled in approval before taking off his belt. I would hear it before, while he would take off his belt in the closet, and it wasn't anything special, but it was so attractive, like the way he drove, especially when he was reversing his car. I felt awkward standing there, so I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him as he took off his pants. They pooled at his feet, and his rough hands caressed my sides before landing on my hips. I gasped and opened my eyes to see silver ones staring back at me. He started attacking my neck, and I tilted my head back. Gabriel quickly sank his canines into me, marking me as his, and I flinched at the pain. He pulled away and pecked me on the lips. Bed, now. Yes, sir. I walked backwards to the bed, him right in front of me the whole time. I fell backwards onto it and crawled deeper into the bed. He followed and rested on top of me before pressing my mouth to his. His hands explored my body, and my hands made sure to touch every muscle. I felt him press against my thigh, and he moved his mouth from mine. He stared down at me with intense eyes, and I'm sure I was returning the gesture. Gabriel's eyes flicked down to the necklace he gave me, which I still wore, because I wanted to, and his lips flicked up in a ghost of a smile. He then kissed my neck, and I tilted my head back. Are you sure? He asked me one last time, his voice more coarse than usual. Yes, I breathed out. He moved closer, and I hissed in pain. Tears welled in my eyes. Shh, Gabriel used his thumb to wipe the tear away. Do you want me to stop? He asked, stilled on top of me. I shook my head no. I wanted him. He held me close, kissing my forehead, and my pain slowly faded, replaced by warmth as the night continued. Chapter 16. When I woke up, I was buried under the covers, nestled up to a naked Gabriel. He was already awake and gently stroking my back with his large, veiny hand. I snuggled into him further, and he looked down at me. Good morning, he said quietly, and my heart fluttered when I looked up at him. Good morning, I smiled back. I yawned, and he gave me a small smile. I think I wore you out last night. It's already 12 in the afternoon. I nodded and tried to readjust myself so I could get food from the kitchen. I was starving, and I'm pretty sure Gabriel was hungry too. I grabbed the blankets so that they covered me before slowly moving, but I winced. I mean, I knew I'd be sore, but I didn't know I'd be that sore. I brushed it off, as I was very hungry for pancakes and moved to get out of bed, but Gabriel's arm shot out and pulled me back to him. I whined, Gabriel, I'm hungry. Shower first. Then, he left the bed and lifted me up bridal style to the bathroom. We showered, and afterwards, I made pancakes for both of us, and then it was time to get ready for Liliana's wedding. I looked at myself in the mirror and smoothed out the wrinkles before walking downstairs to the kitchen. Gabriel was standing there on his phone, already dressed in his suit and tie. He looked up at me and stared. Is it okay? I asked and looked down. I thought it was all right. I mean, maybe the shoes could have been better, but I wasn't about to go out and buy a new pair. You look beautiful, he said as he walked up to me and kissed me gently. I'll see you there. He took his own car to Alpha Donnelly's house to help Alpha Donnelly with whatever, and I went to the venue to help Lily in my own car. Soon enough, I found myself in the same position she was in yesterday, buttoning up her dress. Did you, think about it? She asked me. What do you mean? I finished the last button on her dress before leading her down the stairs. Marrying Gabriel, did you think about it? No, not really. I guess I didn't really have a choice, but I'm not mad at it. Why? Are you okay? I stopped walking to turn around and look at her. She did not look okay. Lily was playing with her fingers, and her perfectly shaped eyebrows were creased in worry. Hey, I hugged her. Alpha Donnelly really likes, and I can tell you like him too. It's going to be okay. She gave a half-hearted smile, and I looked at her sympathetically before giving her the ring. I knocked on the door and slipped through to sit next to Gabriel, who placed a hand on my thigh. The music started, and I turned around to see Lily walk down the aisle, but instead, a panicking pack member was running down and whispering into Alpha Donnelly's ear. Where was Lily? What? Alpha Donnelly let out a threatening roar, and my stomach dropped. Where is she? He growled at the poor man. My eyes widened, and before I knew it, I pulled away from Gabriel and stood to the side to call Lily. She picked up instantly. Liliana Margarita Rosalina Alvarez, where are you? I hissed. I looked around me and noticed that both Gabriel and Alpha Donnelly were staring at me, as was most of the pack, snickerdoodles. I'm fine. I'm safe. I just needed some air. You know how I felt about the whole marriage thing. Just come to your car. I'll tell you where to find me. She hung up abruptly. and I pulled the phone from my ear. I looked over to see Alpha Donnelly walking over to me with a murderous glint in his eyes. His brooding figure loomed over, and I began to shake with fear. "Where is she?" he said in a deadly calm voice, but venom dripping from every word. "I don't know." His hand wrapped around my neck, and he lifted me, shoving me against the wall. His grip tightened, and he growled as I struggled for breath. I couldn't breathe, and I looked over to Gabriel, who was staring at me with worried eyes. My heart dropped. He growled at Alpha Donnelly and started walking towards him. Alpha Donnelly threw me to the ground, and I landed with a thud. I gasped for breath and coughed. "Find her or I'll kill you. I don't care who you are. And bring her back as soon as possible." Alpha Donnelly walked away with another thunderous growl, and I looked up at Gabriel with teary eyes. He had the same cold look as he stared down at me. Gabriel walked over and helped me up, but before he could say anything, Alpha Donnelly called him over. He looked conflicted, but ultimately chose his Alpha. Bitter tears rolled down my face and clenched my jaw. I wiped my face, then angrily stormed out of the venue to find Lily, not bothering to grab a jacket. I felt so rejected. No, not right now. Lily is the priority. I ran to my car and fiddled with my keys before driving out of the place and then calling Lily. It hit 3 rings before I heard her voice behind me. "You can stop that." I screamed, and the car swerved a little, but I regained control of it. A few cars honked at me because I was on the highway. I turned around to Lily in my back seat with sad, tear-filled eyes. Her white dress looked around her. I moved to call Gabriel to tell him that I found Lily, but she stopped me. "Please don't. I'm not ready, please." Her voice cracked, and I sighed. I loved Lily, but I was scared of Alpha Donnelly more. But then she started sobbing, and tears streamed down her pretty face. My heart broke more than it already was, and I pulled the car over on the side of the highway. I turned around. "We don't have to go back yet, okay? But I have to tell them that I have you and that you're safe." I gave her a small smile, and she nodded gratefully. I texted Gabriel, and I saw him typing, but before I saw his response, I shut off my phone. I started the car again and drove to a random 7-Eleven. I'm fairly certain we must have looked ridiculous to the person working there, but oh well. We chose Slurpees, despite the freezing temperatures, and then we were back in my car, sitting in the parking lot. I sipped the blue slush in my cup. Blue raspberry was definitely worth staining both tongue and teeth for. "Are you okay?" I asked, breaking the silence. "It's just a lot of pressure, you know." She played with her straw. "I'm not ready to be Luna. My father gave me grief about how I wasn't even qualified for beta. I mean, Lily," I cut her off. "I have known you for most of my life, so when I say I think you're going to be an amazing Luna, I mean it." She smiled, but then her eyes dropped down to my neck, and they widened. Jesus Christ. "Addie, what happened?" I looked at my neck in the vanity mirror and saw the purple bruise and red rub mark that was forming. My eyes then flicked to the gold necklace that Gabriel had given me, and I stared at it with distaste. Jesus, even after everything, he barely tried. "Don't worry about it right now, okay? Did Caden do that to you?" She asked me with a horrified look in her eyes. "Oh my God, Addie, I'm so sorry." She let out an exasperated sigh. "Gosh, I didn't mean to overreact. I didn't mean to get cold feet. I love Caden, I do, but being Luna and just, and now he hurt you and—" "I'm sorry," she said. I furrowed my eyebrows and looked over. "What? Why?" "Because Caden hurt you," Lily said, looking at the marks on my neck. "It's fine." "It's not fine, and if it was, then why do you look so sad?" "I know something is bothering you too," she pressed. I swallowed the lump in my throat, and tears stung in my eyes. "I don't know, I just feel neglected? Hurt? I don't even know. None of it feels valid. I understand that he's the beta, and he can't stand up to his alpha, but he could have at least— I don't know." I wiped my tears of frustration and looked at the ring on my finger. I took it and put it in the cup holder. I didn't want to wear it right now. It might be childish of me, but I just couldn't. I thought I could have loved him. Whoa there, Adelaide. Where did that come from? But it was true. After the time we had spent together, I honestly thought that maybe I loved him and that he loved me back. Lily looked at me sympathetically. I checked the time and clenched my jaw. Reluctantly, I started the car, and I drove back to the venue as we had been gone for almost an hour. Liliana didn't object, and stayed silent until we parked. "Addie, he does care about you." I looked over at her and then at the ring in the cup holder before slowly putting it back on. "Come on, let's get you married," I said, and smiled at her softly. Lily just smiled and nodded. Chapter 17. When I brought Lily back, she and Alpha Donnelly had a little talk, and then the wedding resumed normally. Neither he nor Gabriel seemed particularly happy with me. The ceremony seemed even longer than mine, though the decor was much grander because it was an Alpha and Luna wedding. I was super tense the whole time, and Gabriel's rock-hard grip on my thigh didn't help my nerves. Usually, when he did that, it was a soothing gesture, but this time, it only frightened me, and I wanted nothing more than to get away. Not only had I disobeyed my mate, the beta of the pack, but I had also disobeyed the alpha. Alpha Donnelly had told me to bring back Liliana as soon as possible, but I had done the exact opposite. I had literally waited an hour to bring Lily back, and if looks could kill, Alpha Donnelly's cold glare would have sent me 6 feet under. But then he was distracted by his bride, who gave him a sorry smile, and he forgot about me. For now, at least. Now I was sitting in the reception, where the music was blasting and werewolves were dancing on the dance floor. It was dark in there, and everyone was partying except for Alpha Donnelly and Gabriel. Gabriel kept glancing at me, and Alpha Donnelly kept sending me cold stares. I looked down and picked at the chicken on my plate. My other hand went around my bruised neck and winced at the touch. Alpha Donnelly was actually going to kill me, and I don't think Gabriel was going to do anything to stop him. At least I won't die a virgin. A cloud of white in the periphery brought me out of my gloomy thoughts. I looked up at Lily, and she smiled at me. I talked to Caden. He won't punish you. I made him realize that you were just helping me. My eyes widened, and I threw my arms around her. He won't hurt you anymore in general. I gave him quite an earful. I pulled away. Thank you. You should also know that Gabriel was there when I was talking to him. I furrowed my eyebrows. Okay? At first, Caden insisted that you be punished, after I asked him not to. Then Gabriel said he would take the beating for you. I leaned away from her and blinked a couple of times. He did what? She must have been hallucinating during that talk. There must have been something in the Slurpee earlier because what she was saying did not make sense. He cares about you, Addie. He really does. I shook my head. He can't take the punishment for something I did. Caden won't hurt Gabriel. He can't have an injured beta. Don't worry. I let out a breath of relief. Lily looked over to Alpha Donnelly, who had motioned for her to come over. She said bye to me and left, leaving me alone in the dark. I looked over to Gabriel, who was in a discussion with Alpha Donnelly, and a small smile played at my lips. I was still a little confused and hurt, but he did care, and that made me feel a lot better than I had previously felt. Alpha Donnelly then left with Liliana, and I decided to walk up to Gabriel. My head was down, and I couldn't bring myself to make eye contact with him. I knew he would be angry with me. His rough hand grabbed mine, and he pulled me out of the loud room, outside. It was cold and dark and unbelievably quiet, except for the sound of our breathing. I thought our relationship had been going quite well up until this point. I had embarrassed him as a leader by going against him. You disobeyed me and Alpha Donnelly. His rough voice cut through the silence, and I almost flinched. Lily needed time. I shrugged my shoulders, and I looked up at him. I tried to keep my voice steady, but I couldn't help but waver a bit. I know, he breathed out, and he brought his hand up to my neck. I flinched back out of instinct, not really knowing what was going to happen. If anyone touched my neck, I knew it would be painful. The bruise was very sensitive. Alpha Donnelly had a very harsh grip. Before he could examine the bruise, he pulled his hand back and clenched his jaw. You're afraid of me again. I shook my head. What? No? Okay, maybe a little. But I wasn't going to tell him that. He could probably already tell. To be completely honest, my posture right now wasn't the most inviting, and I'm sure my face held some slight hesitation. You just flinched, Adelaide, he said bitterly. Not because I'm afraid of you. My neck just hurts. My shoulders sagged, and I looked at the sidewalk. I hate serious conversations. He let out a deep breath. I am sorry, Gabriel said. About earlier. I peered up at him through my eyelashes. He looked uncomfortable, like he had never said those words before in his entire life, and I honestly don't think he had. I don't like seeing you hurt, he continued, and I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. He moved closer so he was towering over me and gently placed a hand on my cheek. I gave him a small smile. I shrugged my shoulders and pressed a small kiss to his palm, not wanting to forgive him yet fully. I would need time for that. He let out a growl of approval before his hand moved to the back of my head and connected my mouth with his. His other arm snaked around my waist. My eyes fluttered shut until he pulled away. Home, now, he commanded softly. My cheeks warmed, and I pecked his lips once more, to which he gave a playful growl. I'll see you there. We parted, and I went back inside to grab my stuff before heading to my car. I pulled out of the parking lot and drove to Gabriel's house. I suppose the day had gone a lot better than I thought it would have. After Lily ran off, I was sure this day was going to be awful. I had just driven past town and was now in the small forest before Gabriel's house. I was only 10 minutes away when a dark figure stood in the middle of the lane. I jumped, and my car swerved off the road, flipping into the ditch. It appears I have spoken too soon. Blood rushed to my head, making my vision blurry. I wiped the broken window glass off my cheek, most definitely forming a few scratches, and I tried to undo my seatbelt, but it was no use. I looked out to see the person slowly walking towards my upside-down car. Fear and panic quickly laced my veins, and I kept clicking and pulling at my seatbelt. I then tried pulling on it to loosen it, hoping I could slip out, but it was locked in place. I let out a strangled cry as the car door was ripped open. The seatbelt was ripped off, and I pulled out of the car, quickly, hitting my head on the edge on the way out. My vision doubled again, and a person pushed me to the ground. I would have fought back, but I couldn't see clearly. My vision was blurry, and my legs were wobbly from just being in a car accident. My left pocket buzzed, meaning that someone was calling me. But I obviously couldn't pick up. The person who chose to call me picked a terrible time. My assailant kicked my stomach, knocking the air out of my lungs, and I flipped over onto my stomach. But in the moonlight, I saw a flash of his ring. It was the same ring that the rogues who attacked me and Lily the other day were wearing. I coughed, trying to get the air back in my lungs, and shakily stood up before he could get me again. I backed up slowly towards the edge of the forest. I could easily lose him in there, even if I were in bad shape. He inched towards me slowly, a sadistic smile on his face. If I bring them the beta female a little early, I don't think they'll mind. He sneered and lunged towards me, but he stopped and looked to his right. A car engine roared and fired down the road. Bright LED lights raced towards him and knocked him down. I'm not sure if it was my possible concussion or just pure exhaustion, because the last thing I remember is hearing the car door opening and then everything going black. Chapter 18. If I bring them the beta female a little early, they won't mind. Beep, beep, beep. You know when you're dreaming and your alarm goes off, but instead of waking you up immediately, the sound of your alarm becomes part of your dream? And then there's that weird rushing feeling where you are brought back to reality and woken up? I believe that was happening right now, except it wasn't an alarm. It was an incessant beeping that I desperately wanted to stop. I slowly cracked open my eyes and realized that I was not where I thought I would be. Then, like a ton of bricks, the events of yesterday hit, and I realized I was in a hospital, as I probably should be, and that the beeping was one of the machines I was hooked up to. Slowly, I sat up, ignoring the pain in my ribs. I furrowed my eyebrows at the dizziness I felt from the movement, but recovered quickly. I was sweaty and panicky, and suddenly felt very hot. I kicked the blankets off me and tried to calm myself down. Annoyed at the beeping, I hesitantly unplugged myself from the machine, and the beeping increased. Almost immediately, a woman with brown skin and long curly hair burst into the room, alarm in her eyes. Her white lab coat floated around her as she assessed the situation, and when she realized I wasn't dead, she relaxed. She came forward and unhooked the machines, making the beeping stop, before introducing herself. Good morning, beta female. I'm Dr. Christie. Good morning, I smiled back. You had quite the night last night, she said, and then ran her eyes over the clipboard that was in her hands. Quite the night indeed. Such a night, in which my car was flipped over, probably totaled, witnessed a rogue get hit by a car, and I ended up in the hospital. Yeah, I laughed nervously. She smiled warmly. Well, nothing is broken. Just take care of the scrapes on your cheeks and try not to move around too much. From what we could gather, there was a large impact to the stomach area. She looked at me with questioning eyes, and I realized I was supposed to say something. Oh yeah, he kicked me in the stomach. She remained silent and then said that I could go home, but once again insisted that I rest and do practically nothing. Before leaving the room, she gave me a warm smile and told me that Gabriel would be here soon, and that after the accident, he had brought my belongings home. Then I was left in the hospital room, alone. I pulled the blankets back up to my chin, lying back down slowly. I was lost in thought for a while before a conversation directly outside my room took place. Is she up? Gabriel. Yes, Beta Lodge. Dr. Christie was talking to the beta female not too long ago. Did you hear any news of that sort? No, sir. That sort? What type of cryptic buffoonery does he mean by that sort? I'm not going to ask him when he comes in, though. I hate confrontation. I hear the door open and peer up through my eyelashes to see Gabriel's large form close the door and then walk towards me. I slowly sit up again so I am not lying down. His suit was crisp, and everything about him exuded a sense of style, and he smelled good. And there I was, literally looking like I had been in a car accident. I opened my mouth to say something, but before anything came out, Liliana opened the door. Adelaide Greyson, are you okay? She walked into the hospital room holding a brown paper bag, Alpha Donnelly's large form following her. I glanced at Alpha's face. I'm sure he always looked annoyed whenever it came to me. Yeah, I'm okay. I only slept in the hospital for the aesthetic. Gabriel sent me a look, which I could only make as a glare, and Alpha Donnelly just looked confused altogether. He gave my mate a look and pulled him out of the hospital room, closing the door behind them. Through the blinds, we could see their large shadows and hear their mutters and curses. I pulled my attention away from them and looked back at Lily. After insisting that I was okay and repeating what the doctor had told her, she relaxed, but only slightly. The brown bag she was holding was for me, apparently. It was filled to the brim with chocolate, and I smiled at the sight. The rest of the time at the hospital was spent with Liliana telling me about her making up with Alpha Donnelly and how he wasn't actually as mad as she thought he would be at the whole situation of her running away, to which I was genuinely surprised. At some point, I also told her that the rogue that attacked me was wearing the same ring as the ones that attacked us the other day, and she simply said that I should tell Gabriel. Then Alpha Donnelly and Gabriel came back into the room, and we all parted ways. When we were leaving the hospital, Gabriel made me wear his suit jacket, which came down to my knees, but the back of hospital gowns isn't exactly modest, so I didn't complain. It was also warm and silky, and smelled like him. I loved it. We sat in the car on the ride home in silence, and I realized that he had barely said a word to me the entire time, so I told him the whole ring coincidence thing, and his grip on the steering wheel tightened. They formed a pack. They don't have an alpha to truly unite under, so that's how they show they are united, he said. The car ride was silent the rest of the way home, and I replayed last night's events in my head, over and over. If I bring them the beta female a little early, they won't mind. Bring me to who? To where? Is someone going to kidnap me? Don't kidnappers have standards? Would they kidnap Lily too? Gabriel pulled up to the house, and I got out of the car silently. I went straight to the house, and then made a beeline for the bedroom. I glanced around and noticed that everything was as it had been before, except that my phone was charging on my nightstand. I showered, poked the large bruise on my stomach, and then got dressed in sweatpants and a sweatshirt. I carefully made my way downstairs and saw Gabriel scrolling through his phone on the couch. He looked towards me and then stood up. I have to go into the office. Luna Liliana will be over in a few minutes, then walked towards the door to leave. My stomach dropped, but I pushed it aside. He was probably stressed. He's too preoccupied to think about little things like you. I bit my lip and swallowed the familiar feeling in my throat. His footsteps were heard retreating to the door, but they oddly got closer. I looked up, and he pulled me into a warm hug. He leaned down and buried his face in my neck, inhaling deeply. I was so worried. He let out a throaty growl, and I pulled away to peck him on the lips. After I ran him over, you just collapsed. I thought I had lost you. He rubbed his nose along mine, and my blood rushed to my cheeks. I love you, I breathed out. The words tumbled out so easily I didn't even think about it before I said it. However, in the silence that felt like an eternity afterwards, I said it. I for sure thought it about. But then, suddenly, Gabriel grabbed the back of my head and pressed my mouth to his. He pulled away and cupped my face. I love you too. Chapter 19. A few hours had passed since Gabriel had left. Lily didn't show up, like Gabriel said, and when I texted him about it, he said that she had gone to the office for a few hours and then home, but she should be over soon. I hadn't really done much except eat and watch Netflix. Frequently, I'd have to respond to Gabriel's text, and occasionally Lily's. They kept checking up on me, and it was incredibly heartwarming. I was cuddled up with Zeus on the couch, and when I tried to change positions, a pain erupted in my stomach. The freaking painkillers wore off. Again. I carefully got up from the couch and maneuvered my way upstairs. I made a beeline for my nightstand, where the Advil was, and took not one, not two, but 3 of the little blue pills. I swallowed them with a glass of water that was on my nightstand and was about to head back downstairs when I heard Zeus start to bark. Zeus never barks. He only barks when new people arrive at the house, but that's impossible. Who could be here? The door was locked. Lily would have to knock if she were here, and even then, Zeus wouldn't have barked if she were here. But then I heard heavy footsteps making their way up the stairs, and I knew it definitely wasn't Gabriel. He would have told me if he was coming home early, and Zeus would not have barked. My body went rigid, and I looked around for my phone so I could contact Gabriel, but then I realized I had left it on the couch downstairs. Of course, this happens the one time I don't bring my phone. I usually bring my phone everywhere. I am a phone fiend, yet here I am. I force myself to move, and I lock the bedroom door. I then look out the window. Maybe I can jump out? But no, there are rogues everywhere, surrounding the entire house, so, in other words, I'm screwed. The knob of the bedroom door is roughly twisted until it breaks, and I look at my assailant. "Your mate hit my brother with a car," he says angrily. I cringe. "Sorry?" He rushes towards me and I dodge him, running out of the bedroom and downstairs. I grab my phone from the couch, with him not far behind me. I grab a lamp and hit him with it. The bulb shatters and scratches his face. He lets out a roar of anger before trying to grab me. "Siri, call Gabriel," I say, running to the kitchen. I grab a knife and stand on the side of the kitchen island, opposite the rogue. "That's not a good idea, sweetheart." As usual, Gabriel picked up immediately. "Arson! Bring her in!" the man shouted, and I looked at him, confused. "Adelaide, who was that?" Gabriel sounded through the phone. I didn't answer, and the knife fell from my hand as Lily was brought in with a gag in her mouth and her hands tied behind her back. Her eyes were red and watery, and I saw a bruise forming on her left cheek. My heart dropped. My one job as beta female is to protect the alpha female, and I had failed. My mouth was gaping in shock at the sight, and I could barely bring myself to move. "Adelaide, what's going on? Who is in the house with you?" I again ignored Gabriel and looked at the man in front of me with pure hatred. He roughly grabbed Lily from the two rogues who were holding her, and she let out a cry of pain. "Let go of her," I said slowly, but my voice couldn't help but shake a little. How the hell was I supposed to get both of us out of this? The first thing I had to do was get Lily free, but she was held by one wolf, two others surrounding her. And when we got free, we had to distract them and the rest of the surrounding wolves. I wasn't strong enough. I would never be strong enough. The man holding her roughly pulled her hair, and she cried, more tears running down her face. "Stop! Stop hurting her!" I shouted. I picked up the knife again and walked closer to them. "Hang up," he said. I looked down at my phone, where the call with Gabriel was still ongoing. "Hand her over first." The man rolled his eyes. "I don't have time for this." He looked at the two men who were still in the room. "Get her." "Adelaide, what's happening?" Gabriel growled. "I'm coming home." I'm pretty sure he hung up after that, as he should, though. I didn't really put any effort into carrying on the conversation. They started walking over towards me, and the other man started dragging Lily away. She let out a muffled scream, and I tried to run after her. One of the rogues grabbed my arm. I stabbed him in the stomach, and he fell to the ground. Did I kill him? I mean, I am a trained warrior, but I've never killed someone before. He let out a pained groan and rolled over to what I assumed would be a more comfortable position for him. Oh, so he's not dead. I remember my father telling me that I should get used to killing people if I were to be a pack warrior. There was a phrase he would tell me, because he probably knew I wouldn't be able to go through with it. What was it again? Oh, right. Don't think, just do. Don't think, just do. I pulled the knife out, and the other one swung at me. I ducked under him and ran out to the door to get Lily, but she was nowhere in sight, and I was surrounded by rogues. Someone kicked the back of my knee and fell to the ground. The knife was taken from my hand, and I felt something pinch in my right shoulder. I tried to stand back up, but something was holding me down. My brain became foggy, and my eyelids became heavy. Geez, what did they give me? I don't even think the hospital is allowed to have this stuff. But soon I couldn't keep my eyes open. Chapter 20. Drip. 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 My face furrowed in aggravation, and I opened my eyes to a dark, dingy prison. The ceiling was molding with obvious water damage, hence the drips, and I quickly wiped my face. My head was pounding, and every single part of my body was sore. What did they give me? I slowly sat up from the concrete floor and cracked my neck. I looked around the cell and found that 3 concrete walls and steel bars caged me in. In the corner was a passed-out Liliana. I slowly crawled over to her, my back and hip cracking as I did so, and gently pushed her so she would wake up. Her eyes fluttered open, and she let out a dry cough that I winced at. "They kidnapped us?" Are you kidding me? She said hoarsely and then followed it up with another cough. Cheese and crackers. My head feels horrible. I stood up slowly, but my vision became doubled, and I still had to support myself on the concrete wall. Lily stood up and helped him stand straighter. Take it easy there, cowboy. Why does my head hurt so much? I asked, resting it against the wall. I don't know, maybe the concussion? Sleeping on concrete? Being drugged? There are a lot of factors. Lily looked at me with concern. I know you want to get out of here, but we're gonna have to wait just a little bit for you to regain your strength. You know that. I nodded my head. She was right, and who knows? Perhaps by then, Gabriel and Alpha Caden will have rescued us. However, that was wishful thinking. These rogues were smart. Gabriel, I really wish he were here. I really wished I were with him. Normally, during the workday, he was gone. But I knew that he'd come back. Now I felt empty without him, but at least I had Lily. We had to escape. I'm sure Lily felt the same way about Alpha Donnelly, maybe even more strongly. It did seem like her relationship progressed a lot faster than mine did. All of a sudden, the cell brightened, and I had to squint my eyes and hold my head with my hands as a flood of pain rushed towards it. Footsteps were heard walking closer to the cell, and I straightened my posture so I could see who was coming. Soon enough, 3 pairs of shiny black dress shoes were in front of the steel bars. I only recognized the man from before, the man who threatened to hurt Lily and kidnapped us. The other were probably just guards. You're awake. His eyes traveled up and down each of our bodies, and I wanted to scream with rage. Go ahead, he said, and the 2 guards pulled bags from out behind them. One of the guards took out a key and opened the door, but neither Lily nor I made a move to escape. We both knew we wouldn't get far if we tried. The guards threw the bags on the ground and then locked the cage again. Eat, I'll see you again tomorrow. Don't tell us what to do. Lily mumbled under her breath and nudged her with my elbow a little, giving her a warning look. We don't know what they're capable of. However, the man just looked amused. Your mates will be here soon enough, and when they come, my pack and I will kill them. My eyes widened. You're not a pack and you're not an alpha, Lily growled, lowly and protectively. Huh. I guess I underestimated Lily's mother-like and Luna-like tendencies. What we lack in strength, we make up for in numbers, he replied monotonously. You're not a true leader, I mumbled under my breath. The man growled and walked closer to the cage. You know, I especially can't wait for your mate. He killed my brother and is always so proud of all the little deeds he does. But tell me, how does feel being mated and married to ruthless monster? Even Alpha Caden has more heart than he does. Anyone can tell you that. I swallowed thickly, not wanting to dignify his words with a response. Gabriel wasn't cruel or mean. Sure, he could be a little cold, but he did have a heart. Huh. The man just smirked and then walked away, his guards following him. When he was gone, I looked to Lily, who was poking both bags with her foot cautiously. Lily, we have to get out of here before Gabriel and Alpha Caden can find us. Uh-huh, I figured. Lily picked one up, and her face lit up. She took out a flimsy plastic spoon. I smiled at it too. How long would it take for them to find us? Like what? 2-3 days? Lily asked, as she bent the spoon in weird angles. Our previous plan of waiting to regain our strength was now out the window. Depending on how long we were asleep, that doesn't give us a lot of time, I stated. But it didn't matter. The goal now was to leave before Alpha Caden and Gabriel showed up, so that no harm came to them. Because in the end, they would do the same for us. I looked inside the bag again, while Lily continued to mold the spoon, and I took a bottle of water. I inspected the seal, and against my better judgment, I drank it anyway. It helped with the headache and my aching throat. Lily took a small sip too. After a few more minutes, she was finished with the spoon, which was now bent into and twisted into a thin and weird-looking triangle. I'll keep watch, I said quietly, and then peeked my head through the steel bars to see if anyone was coming. Instead, I just saw a long hallway, with stairs leading up to what looked like an exit. Clear. Lily began picking the lock with the spoon, and after 20 minutes, we were still locked in the cage. Addie, it's not working, she growled in frustration. Wait, I think I got it. The cell door clicked open, and freedom was just one step closer. Chapter 21. We both carefully stepped out of the cell, making sure the coast was clear before quickly making our way to the exit. I pressed my ear to the door so I could hear if someone were in there. When I heard nothing, I slowly opened the door and peered out. What I saw surprised me. Green, blue, and bright. I saw the bright midday sun, partly shielded by tall trees. I had to squint my eyes to adjust to the sight. I had known that there was a prison, but I assumed it was part of a larger complex. But then again, they are rogues. Where would the larger complex be? Instead, Liliana and I were in a prison in the middle of an incredibly dense forest, probably miles from civilization, miles from freedom, and miles from our mates. What the absolute heck were we supposed to do? Rogues were walking again, guns in hand. When did werewolves start using guns? I scanned the area, looking for a place Lily and I could quickly run through undetected and escape. We would probably have to shift into our wolves at some point, though, to get away faster. And shifting? That wasn't very good. However, in the end, it would be worth it. Our senses would be heightened, and we would be able to navigate through the forest more easily. I furrowed my eyebrows when I saw a narrow path that none of the rogues seemed to be keeping their eyes on. I showed Lily, and then she looked at me before making sure the coast was clear again. "On 3, she said. "Oh wow, this is really happening. 1, we didn't even really have a plan besides running. 2, this is not going to go well." I looked at the rusted door that blocked Lily and me from freedom. Her manicured hand was resting on it, ready to push on the final count. My stomach was full of knots, and I swallowed thickly. 3. The next moment was a blur of angry rogues and trees hazing around us as we sprinted from the dungeon. We ran, and ran, and ran. I pushed my legs to run as fast as they possibly could. Gunshots were fired, and I fell to the ground with a cry as white-hot pain soared through my upper leg. Blood soaked my pants immediately, and tears pricked at my eyes. I gripped the dirt in agony, trying to push myself up, but it was no use. Lily turned around in a flash, her hands quickly pulling me up and dragging me with her. I tried my best to run, but the bullet in my leg told me otherwise. Lily let out a scream of her own when another gunshot was fired, and we both collectively fell to the ground. She pushed herself up, her whimpers leaving her as dirt got under her nails and stained her hands. I pushed myself up too, not wanting to make her help me, as she had just been shot in the arm. We continued running, well, in my case limping, for who knows how long, until we thought we lost them. In all honesty, they probably thought they killed after we both fell to the ground, but I needed a break. I was getting lightheaded from the blood loss, and the pain in my leg was becoming too much. "Lily?" I breathed out. I stopped running and rested my hand against a tree. I wiped the cold sweat from my forehead and looked down at my bloody leg. I bit my lip to keep myself from crying. She stopped and turned around to look at me. Her face was covered in dirt and tears, and her arm was hanging loosely by her side, drenched in blood. What happened to us? Why were our lives like this now? This is my fault. If I had just done my only job of protecting her, this never would have happened. "We need to take a break," I said, trying to sound resolute, but my voice cracked. "You're such a screw-up, Adelaide. What if they catch us? What if they did catch them again? The scent of their blood surely left a trail, and it was almost dark. When we ran away from the rogues, it was around afternoon, and now the sun was practically set. I looked up at the sky as I contemplated our options. If my leg weren't on fire, I probably would have enjoyed the pink and orange tones of the sunset that were painted above us. I let out a shaky sigh. "We need to shift Lily." Lily clenched her jaw and muttered under her breath. She knew I was right. If we shifted into our wolves, our senses would be heightened, and we would be able to find shelter. It would be painful, especially since we're injured, but it would be worth it in the end. When we shifted, our wolves weren't injured, but when we would shift back into our human forms would be damaged, and that pain would come back 10 times worse. But hopefully, we'd be in a hotel or something. So we shifted, our bones cracking and rearranging. It was agonizing, and during the process, I couldn't help but wonder what Gabriel's wolf looked like. My wolf wasn't exactly the most unique because I was a pack warrior. It was kind of sad that I rarely shifted. It was mainly because the process was complete torture, like how it just was. But in the end, I felt a lot better because my wolf didn't have a shot leg, and Lily felt a lot better because her wolf wasn't injured either. The woods around me changed from feeling suffocating to feeling peaceful. The soft forest breeze went by, and I actually felt like I was able to enjoy it for the first time. I lifted my nose and inhaled deeply. I smelled gasoline and food a couple of miles away. Lily and I looked at each other before nodding and running in that direction. It was a human town, but it was worth the risk. Chapter 22. Lily and I ran in our wolf forms for about 5 miles until we were about 100 meters from the human town. We had mutually agreed just to suck it up and walk the rest of the way. Humans were not allowed to know about werewolves. It was the mutual and unchanging rule between all supernaturals that humans were not allowed to know of our existence. Who knows what experiments they would perform on us? Who knows what military machines they would use us as? I shifted back and let out a small whimper of pain. I stared at the dirt ground as I lay on it for a few minutes. Tears pricked at my eyes as the pain in my leg throbbed. I didn't want to move. I felt so weak suddenly. I had lost so much blood. I used a nearby tree to help pick myself up, letting the tears fall. Geez, it hurt so much. Gabriel. I want Gabriel. I wanted him to tend to my leg like he did my hand when it was hurt. I wanted him to hold me. My sweaty clothes stuck to my skin unpleasantly, and I looked at my hand where my wedding ring was. It still shimmered against my dirt-covered hand. I hoped he wasn't going to the rogue camp, because that meant Lily and I had escaped for nothing, and he and Alpha Donnelly were putting themselves in danger. Instinctively, my hand went up to my neck, and I let out a sigh of relief when I still felt the necklace that had Gabriel's name on it. I missed him. I wiped my tears away and flinched when I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Are you ready?" Lily asked. I looked at her and nodded. We slowly made our way towards the town. I was growing increasingly lightheaded by the minute, and the fact that the sun had set did not help. The only light source was the moon. Lily and I stuck close to one another, and soon we saw the lights of the town. We heard cars driving by and people laughing. I suppose when we got there, we would look for a motel and clean ourselves up. We couldn't go to a hospital, or else we would risk exposure. When we reached the edge of the forest, my eyes slightly lit up at the cute town in front of me. There were cute 50s-style diners with fairy lights and tall lamp posts lining the streets. Everyone there seemed to be happy and enjoying the night. I might even be tempted to come back here and visit for a day trip with Lily. "It's a pretty area," I said, looking around once more. "It is. It's sad they have to see our sorry selves," Lily replies, and I couldn't help but snort. It honestly was a shame. It was such a picture-perfect town, and I couldn't imagine how we looked, bullet wounds and all. We probably looked like walking corpses. If we were humans, we probably would have died by now. I scanned over the area once more, but this time more intensely. I was looking for a hotel, a motel, or a truck stop. Anything, really. Even a 7 to 11 bathroom would be excellent. And then I saw a Sadie's Motel in bright red LED lights, not too far away. "There," I weakly pointed to it, my hand shaking dramatically. We started walking towards it, but the warm town we observed from a distance instantly became cold when they saw us. We were greeted with harsh stares and whispers, which was to be expected, but it was as if the whole atmosphere changed. It was almost suffocating. The walk to the motel was excruciating, and when we entered the dodgy place, the woman at the counter looked at us with wide eyes, visibly frightened. The interior was dark, illuminated only by the lamp on the counter. Lily and I walked up to the front desk, holding each other tightly. The lady sat up straighter and set down her French needlepoint. She eyed us warily, and honestly, I couldn't blame her. "We'd like a room, please." I tried to keep my voice soft and smooth, but it shook and trembled. Maybe that worked in our favor, though, because instead of automatically kicking us out, the lady eyed us for a moment. "Do you have money to pay for it?" I felt Lily stiffen beside me. "Well, Pop-Tarts?" I had not had that. "We don't have any right now, but if you let us stay the night and borrow a phone, we will be able to pay you back," I offered. My eyebrows furrowed, and I looked at the old woman in front of me. If she didn't let us stay the night, I thought I might cry right there. "I need the payment now." Lily let out an aggravated sigh next to me and was about to speak, but I held her back. It was my fault we were in this mess. It was my job to get us out. If I had just done my job as the beta female of protecting the Luna, this never would have happened. Think, Adelaide, think. My eyes fell on my hands, where my wedding ring gleamed. I clenched my fist and reluctantly pulled the ring off my finger. It physically and emotionally hurt. The woman looked at it skeptically, but also never took her eyes off it. It was obvious she was interested in it. The diamond on it was huge. "Addie, stop. You don't have to." And she went to put the ring back on my finger. "Yes, I do, Liliana. It's my job to protect you," I whispered in her ear. She stared at the ring the entire time, from when it left my hand to when it entered the strange woman's. Gabriel will probably kill me when he finds out. But in the end, we got a room. I immediately collapsed on the bed, and Lily followed suit. We took turns showering and got dressed in complimentary robes instead of our old, blood-stained clothes. Lily found a first aid kit in the bathroom. I'd never given stitches before. I'd never taken a bullet out of a wound before. And it hurt like a mother trucker. But when it was all over and our wounds could actually heal because there wasn't a bullet in the way, I felt a lot better. Addie? Yeah. We have to get your ring back, Lily stated. I lay on the bed and looked at my empty left hand. The ring that reminded me of Gabriel is now gone. I still had his necklace, but the ring was a symbol of our marriage, of us being mates, together for life, and his mark on my neck. All in all, the ring wasn't that big of a deal, and it wasn't that deep. It was mainly a show to humans that we belong to each other. He can buy me another Lily, it's not that big of a deal, I said quietly. Nonsense, she sat up in bed. Adelaide, you do so much for me. You're my best friend, and you know the ring means a lot to Gabriel. Hell, if I lost mine, Caden would flip. I rubbed my empty ring finger and looked out the window. It was getting late, and I was getting tired. You're my best friend too, Lily, and that's why I have to protect you. It's literally my job as a beta female. She let out a frustrated sigh. We should sleep, I said after a few moments. We couldn't stay here in this town for long. I went to turn off the lamp when something on the dresser caught my eye. Most dressers have ornate knobs, but this one was so familiar. I got off the bed and limped up to it. I felt my blood run cold as I always recognized the symbol on the knob. It was the same symbol that the rogues wore on their rings. Chapter 23. I felt my body instantly seize up as fear wrapped its hands around me. The intricate, deep R on the knob glared at me, taunting me. It knew that it had won by successfully luring me into a trap. Lily and I had to leave now. I didn't even think before putting on my old clothes, caring if they were blood-stained or dirty. My legs screamed at me to stop and calm down. Lily did too. Addie, what the heck are you doing? She asked tiredly. The knobs was all I could manage to get out before collecting my thoughts. They own the town or are working with it. Lily, we have to leave now, I continued. She stood up and paced to the knob I was looking at. When she recognized the symbol, she took in a sharp breath. Are you kidding me? She muttered, quickly getting dressed as fast as she could with a hurt arm. We made our way out of the room, quickly and quietly. We left the short-lived peace we had wished would last longer. However, reality soon set in, and now we were in survival mode. Again. I was so tired. I'm positive Lily was too. I can't even remember the last time we had a decent meal or sleep, and the Agrios Pack, where our mates resided, seemed so distant. It felt like I was slowly losing my grip on them, and they were becoming out of reach. We trekked to the front lobby and saw that the woman wasn't there anymore. It's clear, I whispered, and crept out of the lobby into the cool night air. I looked behind me, knowing Lily would be there, but she wasn't, and my panic set in. I suddenly felt exposed, alone, and scared without her. I was about to make my way back in when she stumbled out with a goofy smile. She held up a pair of car keys that she probably stole from the valet part of the desk in the lobby, and in her other hand, she held up something small and shiny that I couldn't make out. Lily jogged up to me and placed the shiny, cool metal in my hands. It was my wedding ring. I smiled at it. Yeah, thank me later, but we need to find out what car these keys belong to. I slipped the ring back on my finger and internally rejoiced at how it felt. I don't know if I could have gone through this alone, and I was selfishly happy that Lily was here with me. It's going to be a Honda Civic judging by the key, I said, looking around and noticing that there were about 10 Civics in the parking lot. Lily pressed the unlock button, causing a gray one to light up, and we rushed over to it. Lily got into the passenger seat as she can't really steer properly with an injured arm, and it was the left leg that was shot, not my right. I turned on the ignition, and the car roared to life. Quickly, and with shaky hands, I adjusted the seat and the mirrors before taking off. In all honesty, I had no idea where I was going, but I knew we had to get out of that town. After driving for who knows how long, we were finally able to escape the deadly maze that was that town. I just don't get it, Liliana said right before I entered the highway. How would the humans and rogues? She trailed off, lost in thought. It brought to mind a thought I had earlier that day. When did werewolves start using guns? They broke the code of secrecy. How else would they have the symbol? They have to bring working together. How else would the werewolves in the rogue camp have gotten guns? I said, picking up speed and looking at the large green signs. For the love of cheesecake, where is the sign that will lead me back to Seattle? Lily put her head in her hands. What are we going to do, Addie? Well, first we need to find out where the actual heck we're going. I've been driving aimlessly for who knows how long, and we're bound to run out of gas soon, I said, looking at the half-empty tank. Lily perked up at my words and started scavenging around the car. She looked through all the compartments until she found what she was looking for. A GPS. Granted, it was super dusty and looked like it had not been used in a few years, but if it worked, it would do. Lily plugged it in, and my eyes kept glancing from the road to the blank screen of the navigator. "Come on, come on, come on," she muttered. "Oh," she breathed out. I heard a click and a slight musical sound as the device turned on. The power switch helped. I shook my head and smiled as she positioned it where I could see it. "What's Alpha Caden's address?" I asked. Lily opened her mouth but then closed it with pursed lips. "I actually don't know. I was hoping you knew Gabriel's." I shook my head. Although I technically lived there, I didn't know his exact address. I just knew it was somewhere in Seattle. "We can just put in any address that's located in Seattle and then we can figure it out, right?" I asked. "I hope so. You'll reach your destination in 6 hours." The voice from the GPS called out once Lily had chosen a place. Lily and I exchanged a look. We knew we were both tired and hungry. We knew we were bound to run out of gas before the 3-hour mark, and we knew that even when we did reach the destination she chose, it wouldn't be the end of our journey. Chapter 24. 3 hours of driving had passed, and my eyes were beginning to close. I knew I was tired, but I guess I didn't realize how exhausted I actually was. "Hey, do you want me to drive now?" Lily sat up and looked over at me. I nodded my head without speaking and then pulled into an exit lane. We needed gas anyway. I'm not sure how we were going to pay for it, but we'd have to get some if it meant survival. As I pulled into the gas station parking lot, Lily started fumbling and searching around the car. "What are you looking for?" I asked. "Every good driver has change somewhere." She kept looking and looking. She dug into the middle compartment, pulling out miscellaneous items until she pulled out a large black coin purse. She looked at it with satisfaction. Lily opened the purse and started counting. $2.26. I snorted. "That'll get us, what? A gallon and a half?" I pulled into a parking space and turned off the car. I looked at the gas station. It was old and ratty, with chipped paint and flickering LED lights that said, "Open." We were really lost in the middle of nowhere. "No, maybe it's all we need," she said, and I looked at her, confused. Did she bang her head too hard? How could that possibly be all that we need? But then she pointed to a payphone on the outside right corner of the little shack, and I smiled. For once, I was happy that Gabriel made me memorize his number. Here, I got it. I held out my hand, and Lily handed me the change. "I'll keep a lookout," she said. I nodded and then got out of the car. I limped over to the payphone, as my legs still hadn't healed properly from lack of sleep and food, but I got where I needed to be. I slid $1.25 into the coin slot on the machine and dialed Gabriel's number. I really hoped he picked up because we didn't have enough money for a second call, and if he did pick up, the timer only gave me 5 minutes. I had to practice what I was going to say. "Just tell him where you are. That's the big thing. Then you can say to him how much you missed him and cry. Ring, ring, ring. Please pick up, Gabriel." "It's me." I heard a deep voice on the other side. "Hello, this is Gabriel Lodge, from Lodge and Donnelly Industries speaking." I froze and almost cried tears of joy from his voice. All my words seemed to be caught in my throat. "Hello? If you need an appointment, call the front desk. Don't waste my time," he said coldly. I panicked, thinking he was going to hang up, and forced a word out of my mouth. "Gabriel?" I said into the phone. I heard him curse on the other side of the phone and then stay silent for a moment before saying, "Adelaide." I nodded my head even though he couldn't see me, tears springing to my eyes. Yes, it's me." I started to ramble. Lily and I escaped. We had to steal a car, but it was for a good cause, but now we're at some random gas station 3 hours from Seattle and I don't know what to do, and we don't have money for gas, so we can't drive there, and we don't have money for a bus ticket or anything, and we don't have a lot of time, I said, looking at the time on the call. The 5 minutes were almost up before we were disconnected. "Adelaide, slow down and stay on for as long as you can. We can track the call." He sounded stressed and tired. His voice was raspier than usual. "You can?" I asked hopefully. "Yes, we can. It will take a while for us to get there, but we're coming. I just want you to know how much I've The phone disconnected, and I cried that it was over. I wiped my tears before walking back to the car, where Lily was looking at the window. I sat in the driver's seat and told her that they were coming, but it would be a while. "How long is a while?" she asked and looked at me. "I don't know. We're 3 hours from Seattle, so we can probably assume 3 hours, maybe more." I shrugged. "We should probably sleep then." Lily reclined her chair, and I did the same. I turned onto my side and closed my eyes. I don't know how long I was out for, but a sudden ringing caused me to jolt up. I looked out the car window and realized that the sun was now setting, probably meaning we had been out for a couple of hours. I rubbed my eyes sleepily and massaged my temples. Everything was foggy, and I didn't really feel awake yet. I'm not sure how much sleep I got, but it definitely wasn't enough. The same ringing sound caused me to jump, and I looked around outside. My eyes found the payphone that was vibrating. Is that Gabriel? It has to be. I got out of the car and walked over to the phone as quickly as I could. I picked it up and waited for the other line to say something. Instead, I just heard heavy breathing. You think you're smart, huh? You think you and little Luna friend can escape us and we won't find you? My body went rigid and cold. I heard footsteps behind me, but I was too scared to look, so I just gripped the phone tighter, ready to hit someone with it if I had to. We are going to find you, and when we do, we will kill you. The line disconnected, and I felt my heart thumping rapidly in my chest. I shivered from the cold and from fear. I felt like I could barely breathe. The footsteps got closer. Don't mention Lily. They don't know she's in the car. I shut my eyes and waited for my oncoming doom. I felt a warm hand grasp my shoulder, and I immediately turned around and swung the phone at them. The man ducked down, quickly grabbed the phone from me, and stood back up to his full height so I could look at him clearly. My eyes widened and my heart clenched. Tears sprang from my eyes, and I let out a breath I didn't even know I was holding. Gabriel, Chapter 25. His name left my lips effortlessly as I gazed at him. Gabriel didn't take his eyes off me as he put the phone back behind me. My mouth hung open as I stared at him. This was not real. Was it? How could a nightmare be over in only 3 days? And then I remembered the phone call I had just received and realized the nightmare wasn't over. It had just been delayed for the time being. A breeze went by, forcing my vision to be covered by hair, but I quickly pushed the greasy strands back so I could make sure he was real. And I think he was. He was in a dark gray suit with a black dress shirt underneath, the top buttons undone. His face wasn't clean-shaven like the last time I saw it, and his hair, even though it was slicked back, was messy. Hate to interrupt, but where is Liliana? My head snapped to the right to see Alpha Donnelly looking down at me expectantly. He, too, looked like a mess, and I thanked God Liliana was right in the car over there, because if she wasn't, I was sure Caden would kill me even if Gabriel were right there. I licked my dry lips. The car. I motioned to the gray Honda Civic, and he quickly turned around and walked towards the car. He tried to open the door, but I had locked it, so he knocked on it. He knocked aggressively, I might add. It was fair that he was impatient. Alphas are a lot more possessive and protective. From a distance, I saw Lily jump up, alert and frightened, but when she realized who it was, she unlocked the car door, stepped out, and flung herself into his arms. Alpha Donnelly wrapped his arms around her and gently picked her up, holding her close to his chest. I smiled, and my heart warmed at the sight. Adelaide, Gabriel said. I looked towards him and noticed he was taking in my appearance. His eyebrows were creased with concern as he took in my dirt and blood-stained clothing. He took a step toward me and inspected my shirt closely. Is this your blood? My response got locked in my throat, and I had a breathing hitch. Without responding, I wrapped my arms around him. My eyes welled up with unshed emotions, and I felt him wrap his arms around me as well, hesitantly, as if he thought he was going to hurt me. What did they do to you? He whispered in my hair. At that moment, it was like everything hit me again, and the reality of the events weighed down on my chest like a ton of bricks. I couldn't breathe, and my hands clenched onto the back of his suit jacket. I went limp in his grip, like a rag doll. I'm glad his arms were around me, because if they weren't, I'm sure I would have collapsed. My leg ached, and my head was throbbing. My throat was dry, and it stung every time I swallowed. I felt gross and disgusting from having been in the same bloody and dirt-covered clothes for such a long time. I didn't respond to his question. I didn't know if I could. I just shook my head slowly, which caused my headache to become worse. A breeze went by, and I shivered from the cold. Gabriel pulled away, but hands clung to his jacket still. Let's go home. I nodded my head and followed him to the same black car that had picked us up after the plane ride, the first day of being Gabriel's mate. Look how far I've fallen since then. I sat down in the black leather seat and buckled my seatbelt. Gabriel sat in the driver's side and followed Alpha Donnelly's car, which was where Lily was. Even though I knew she was safe, I was still worried about her. After going through so much with her, the thought of being separated from her or from Gabriel gave me anxiety. Just thinking about it made my heart rate increase and my breathing uneven. And I had so many questions. How long have the humans been working with the rogues? Did Gabriel and Alpha know? Why am I still so scared? What if they take us again? What if? Questions kept picking at my brain like ravens picking at a dead animal, coming back over and over again, never satisfied, never getting an answer. Gabriel must have noticed my shaky breathing because he placed his hand on my leg, but I winced and moved away from him. The bullet wound still hadn't healed because of the lack of food and rest I had gotten over the past few days. I saw him clench his jaw and put his hand back on the steering wheel. No, come back, please, please. He was upset, I could tell. I think he's just been really stressed the past few days. I finally understood the full extent of the threat posed by the rogues. No wonder he was so busy all the time. What's wrong, Adelaide? He asked, not taking his eyes off the road. I swallowed, a burning pain traveling down my throat because it was so dry. They shot me in the leg. My voice cracked, and I looked down. I put my head against the window and hugged myself. I hadn't even been through that much, and what Lily and I had been through was my fault. I bit my lips to hold back the sob that was threatening to escape. Maybe I'm in shock? Maybe that's why I feel all the emotions all of a sudden, and why I'm so tense. I clenched my fist and took a deep breath, inhaling Gabriel's scent. I really had missed him. Even if our relationship wasn't perfect, I knew he'd always be there for me. You should sleep, Adelaide. It's a long drive back. I knew he was right, and that I should sleep, and even though I was so tired, I didn't think I could. But, sleep, I'll be right here when you wake up. He growled lowly and put his hand on my knee rather than my thigh. I took a deep breath and rested my head against the window. I let my eyes slowly close as my breathing evened. Gabriel didn't move his hand from my leg the entire time. Chapter 26. My eyes fluttered open sporadically during the long car ride back, but they ultimately stayed closed. They felt too heavy even to try to keep open for the whole 3-hour ride back, yet my consciousness slowly faded in and out the whole time. Honestly, it was more exhausting. Why is it so hard to fall asleep in a car now? Was it the occasional bump we passed over, causing my head to lift up slightly and then bump against the glass of the window? Was it the constant ache in my head due to the concussion? Or was it the fact that I had been in the same blood-stained clothes for more than 3 days straight? Gabriel stopped the car, and I reluctantly opened my eyes. The large beige and white building was not Gabriel's house. Honestly, it might have been, but the dozens of cars parked around us made me believe otherwise. I assumed Gabriel was stopping to get something, and I doubt he would take me in with him, so I shut my eyes and snuggled up to the car door. It must have been the stillness and quiet that I needed to fall asleep, because after I closed my eyes that last final time, I was out like a light. I woke up again to a familiar incessant beeping. I forced my crusted eyes open to try and shut it off, whatever it was. The bright white light hit my face, and I had to squint my eyes for a while to adjust. I sat up slowly, using one hand to guide my head. It felt numb and heavy. I took my hand away and propped myself up more. I was in a hospital room. An IV was stuck in my arm, and I couldn't even feel the pain in my leg. It actually felt excellent. One thing I did notice, though, was that I was still in my old clothes. The only thing different was that my left pant leg had been cut off, probably to get to my wound, and I could smell my own body odor. I smelled terrible, truly terrible. I looked around the room and noticed a hospital gown neatly folded at the end of the bed. After I saw it, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I pulled the IV out of my arm and unhooked myself from the monitor, yet that only made the beeping worse. Hop off, I muttered to the machine and lazily swung my legs over the hospital cot. I limped over to the outlet and unplugged it. The beeping stopped, and my head rejoiced. I grabbed the hospital gown and limped into the bathroom. I shut the door and locked it. I rested my head against it. The room started spinning from all the sudden movement, and probably because I ripped an IV out of my skin. I pushed myself off the door and looked at myself in the mirror, and oh my goodness, my breath left me. I felt winded. Hygiene had really left the chat. I was starting to break out near my hairline due to a lack of bathing. My hair was greasy and flat. It stuck to my cheeks, and the rest of me. Lordy, I was even surprised Gabriel wanted to hug me when he saw me. I turned around and looked at the white bandage that was placed on my leg. I sighed and grabbed the trash can. My movements were lazy and loud, but I honestly couldn't care. I just wanted to shower and get back to sleep. I took out the plastic bag and saw that it was clean, and I tied it tightly around my leg so the bandage wouldn't get wet. I knew it wouldn't do much, but it's the thought that counts. I stripped out my clothes and almost cried in happiness at the feeling. I don't even think they could be salvaged. I would burn them. I turned on the water and ensured it was scalding hot before stepping in. I scrubbed myself until my skin was pink and raw. I washed my hair and took out the tiny little razor that was in there, and I did my best to shave my armpits and legs. The hair had started to grow back, giving me an itchy stubble feeling that I didn't really feel until now. I had been too preoccupied before to notice. When I was done washing, I stood there for a while, just enjoying the steaming hot water running down my body. I closed my eyes and let out a deep breath. "Where is she?" A voice boomed, and my eyes flew open. "Beta Lodge, I believe she's in the bathroom." I heard the shaky, yet calming voice of Dr. Christie through the door. "Gabriel's here?" "Of course, Gabriel's here." I felt a small smile form on my face, but it was wiped away when I heard a loud banging at the door. "Adelaide, are you in there?" he said. Geez, what had him so worked up? "Yes," I called out. I quickly turned off the shower and dried myself off. I tied the hospital gown and took the trash bag off my leg. My damp hair trailed down my back, and my skin was a little red from the water. I unlocked the bathroom door and opened it. I saw Gabriel standing there, one hand on his hip, the other pinching the bridge of his nose. Dr. Christie was fixing the monitor and the IV. Her head shot up to me, and she let out a relieved breath. "Beta female, you should lay down. Let me change your bandage." She quickly led me back to the hospital cot. I sat down on it and swung my legs over so I could still sit up. She told me to lie on my back, and I did. She quickly replaced my soggy bandage with a new one. I flipped myself back over so I could sit up. She smiled at me and then left the room, leaving me alone with Gabriel. He walked to me and placed a large hand over mine, which was resting on my thigh. "I don't want you out of my sight again. Is that clear?" He growled lowly and ran his thumb up and down the back of my hand. Sure. I didn't really know what to say. I wasn't really in a position to defy, and I didn't think he meant it. He might be a little possessive these first few weeks, but I think I'd be fine. I don't think I'd want him out of my sight either. Knowing he would be right there made me feel safe and protected. He looked irked by my answer. I think he expected me to run into his arms crying again, but having him near me made me calm. As much as I hated to admit it, I had grown pretty dependent on him, and even through his cold and stoic stares, I could tell that he liked it. At least I hoped he liked having me around. And if all else fails, I could survive without him. That's one thing these past few days have taught me. But I wasn't going to let go of him anytime soon, and I don't think he was going to let go either. I looked at him and realized he had shaved. His hair looked neat as usual, and his suit was pressed, but he didn't wear a tie. He looked better. I pressed my hand to his chest, and he slowly brought his face down. I inched myself up to meet him. The kiss was slow and sweet, but I could tell he was holding back. It was for my benefit, I think. He pulled back, and I looked at his broad chest, where my hand lay. He rested his other hand on top of it. "You aren't wearing a tie," I said. And he breathed out, slightly tightening his grip on my hand. "It's because you weren't there to tie them for me." Chapter 27. The ride home was short and quick, and a lot more comfortable than the ride to the hospital. I had changed out of the hospital gown since Gabriel had brought me a pair of sweatpants and one of his sweatshirts to wear. Gabriel told me that I had been asleep for 8 hours, and I felt exponentially better than I had felt 8 hours ago. I was still tired, but I felt better. He bought me Chinese takeout and a smoothie, saying that I needed to eat because he could tell I've lost weight. I didn't complain. The food was deliciously aromatic and made my mouth water. The last time I had actually had a proper meal was a fuzzy memory. Everything felt blurred together. We finally arrived at the house. Gabriel carried in the food. I walked inside and was met with Zeus bouncing up happily, excited about my arrival. I scratched his ears and he wagged his tail. I forgot how much I missed him. A small laugh left my mouth when he licked my face. I rubbed his head before pulling away and walking into the kitchen. Gabriel had already pulled out 2 plates. I walked to the counter to get silverware for him since he couldn't use chopsticks. I got a fork and glanced into the trash can. My eyebrows rose at the alarming number of empty glass bottles. Beer, scotch, whiskey, you name it. It was an empty bottle in the trash can. He should have recycled them. Gabriel wasn't really one to drink, only on special occasions. I had only seen him drunk once. I thought back to what he had told me in the hospital room. He had never worn a tie since I had been taken because I wasn't there to tie them for him. Maybe I had grown a little too dependent on Gabriel, but maybe he was growing dependent on me, too. I pulled my eyes away from the trash can and set the fork down near him. I practically inhaled everything on my plate. I was so hungry, and I was weak from the lack of food. After I ate, I felt immediately better. My stomach was full, but I kept sipping on the smoothie so I didn't waste it. Adelaide. I looked up from my empty plate, playing with the straw in my mouth. Gabriel was sitting back in his seat, watching me curiously, obviously concerned with how much I had eaten. I usually didn't eat as much as I had, so he probably put together that I didn't have access to a 5-star buffet when I was gone, or any food, really. I know it might be hard, but I need you to tell me what happened, in detail, he said sternly. I nodded my head slowly and began to tell him the series of unfortunate events that had occurred, from Liliana's violent kidnapping to how they threatened her and me, subsequently being drugged and thrown into a cell, escaping in the middle of who knows where, being shot and given nasty looks in a picturesque but deadly town, stealing a car and driving to a random gas station. I told him how Lily had found change and how I had called him, scared and unsure if he would even answer. Then I told him about the other phone call and how it wasn't over yet. He listened silently the whole time, not taking his eyes off my face with a clenched fist. When I was done, I let out a deep breath and stared at him quizzically. He didn't say anything. So did you know? I asked and then looked down to play with my fingers. I felt my nerves increase and goosebumps pricked all over my skin. My stomach knotted, awaiting his answer, even though I already knew it. Suddenly, the dining room felt small, and the table, on which we were sitting opposite ends, wasn't long enough. Know what, Adelaide? He let out a deep breath afterwards. Did you know that the rogues were working with humans? I peered up at him through my eyelashes and watched his reaction. He remained stoic, appearing apathetic. My stomach dropped. Yes, I already knew that was the answer. So why did it feel like a punch in the gut? There was no way the Agrios Pack was as highly ranked as it was if the Alpha and Beta didn't know everything about everyone. I just didn't know why he didn't tell me. Lily and I had been targeted multiple times. Did he not think this was an important detail to tell us? Both him and Alpha Donnelly. I felt the foreign red feeling of anger slowly fill me and tried to calm down. There was no point in getting angry with him. I was so busy trying to calm myself down that I almost missed what he was saying. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you involved. I tried to protect you. Protect me. He did a great job with that, huh? Okay, maybe I wasn't being fair. I felt bitter and annoyed. Yet if he had told Lily and me, we would have never put ourselves in danger by going to that human town. The rogues would still think that Lily and I were dead. Adelaide, I was doing it to protect you, he said again, but more forcefully. I furrowed my eyebrows, shaking my head. He lied to me. How am I supposed to be a beta female if he won't tell me what's going on? I got up to leave. I shouldn't be angry? Should I be? I didn't even know. Did he even lie to me? It feels like he did. Adelaide, I heard him get up to follow me. No, stop, I said. He kept following, but I didn't pay attention. He may have done it with good intentions, but I still felt hurt. Now, in the future, whenever he spoke to me about anything, I would always have an iota of doubt in the back of my mind. The damage felt irreversible. You lied. I stopped walking and turned around to face him. Do you know how much trouble Lily and I could have avoided if you had just told me? He stayed silent, looking at me with a longing expression. I turned around and walked up the stairs. He continued to follow me into the bedroom. I found my phone and saw that I had a few texts from Lily. Adelaide, I really did do it to try and protect you. He let out a deep breath. I'm sorry that it didn't turn out as expected. I paused my actions and looked at him, the anger slowly dissipating. I wouldn't have been able to stay angry for long because of the mark, but it went away quickly. Gabriel rarely apologizes. He rarely shows emotion, if I'm being honest. I should have told you, he finished, and I crossed my arms over my chest as I looked at him. My eyes warily scanned his handsome face. He looked tired. I walked up to him, and he placed his large hands on my hips. I forgive you, I whispered. He gave me a wolfish grin, and my heart stopped. His smiles always took my breath away. He leaned down to kiss me, but I stopped him, regaining my senses. But, I said and slowly pulled away, you have to tell me everything from this point on. He nodded his head in agreement. Yes, and you have to stop drinking. He looked at me hard before running his hand over his face. I saw the bottles, I continued. I'll stop, he said and pulled me closer to him. Thank you. I smiled and finally let him kiss me. He pulled away and ran his hands up and down my torso. There is something you need to know. His demeanor changed. What? Alpha Donnelly and I have a meeting scheduled with the rogues and the humans. Both you and Luna Liliana are expected to attend. Chapter 28. It had been 2 days since I returned home. I spent most of my time at Alpha Donnelly's house with Liliana. We would formulate conspiracy theories about the rogue human situation and ponder on what the meeting would be like. Eventually, we would fall asleep or watch Netflix. Her arm was nearly healed, as was my leg. It just felt a little sore now. And now here we are, in a big grass field with forest on every side of it, so no civilians would see. Alpha Donnelly had ordered all the pack wolves to stay inside and lock their doors. He only brought a few of the top warriors, Liliana, Gabriel, and me. I'm not sure why Liliana and I were here. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to see them again. Right now, we are waiting for the humans and rogues to arrive. It was silent and eerie. A cold gust of wind would fly by and leave me shivering. I couldn't believe that it was already December. October felt like such a long time ago. I held onto Gabriel's arm for warmth. He had been silent the entire time. Normally, he was quiet, but this was different. He was contemplative and stressed, very stressed. Perhaps it was because he might have to kill humans today. Werewolves don't kill humans. It was part of the treaty between all the packs and a necessary aspect of maintaining our identity's secrecy. It also just wouldn't be a fair fight. Unarmed and even armed, a human had no chance of survival against a werewolf. I let out a deep breath and gripped Gabriel tighter. He didn't look at me but put his hand over mine. Then out of the shadows, the same rogue that had kidnapped Liliana and me emerged along with his posse. Around the rogues were people who looked smaller, carrying heavy guns. Humans. I felt tense all of a sudden. "Gabriel, we're outnumbered," I whispered to him. "No, we aren't. Wolves without a true pack are inherently weaker than those that do," he responded. I didn't question him again. "Caden," the rogue said with a sick smile on his face. He knew it was disrespectful to address an alpha without the proper title. "Gabriel." His eyes turned toward us, and I felt Gabriel stiffen, trying to hold himself back. But his face remained passive. The rogue's eyes turned to me, and his smile widened, making my stomach drop. I felt uncomfortable under his scrutinizing gaze. He looked me up and down, relishing in my distaste for his stare. Gabriel growled lowly and pushed me behind him slightly. "It doesn't have to be like this," Alpha Donnelly began. "I think it does," the rogue sneered. He calmed himself and looked at Gabriel again. "I only want one thing, though. I want a life for a life." He tilted his head so he could look at me better from behind Gabriel. "No," was all Gabriel said. He shrugged his shoulders. "So be it." The rogue grinned sickeningly before pulling out a gun and aiming it at Gabriel. My eyes widened, and I stepped away from behind Gabriel to stand in front of him. The sound of a gunshot echoed through the air, birds chirping loudly and flying away as quickly as possible, alarmed. My tightly shut eyes opened, and I looked down at my body, noticing it was unharmed. No. I wasn't fast enough. The initial shock left my body, and I quickly turned around to see Gabriel lying on the ground, a wound on the left side of his chest, dangerously close to his heart. My eyes pricked with tears, and I fell to my knees. I cradled his head in my chest. "Adelaide," he breathed out and looked up at me. I caressed his face with one hand and harshly wiped away my tears with the other. He placed his cold hand over my wrist and ran his thumb over the back of my palm. Then his hand fell onto the grass, and he breathed his last breath. Gabriel was gone. My heart hammered in my chest, and I felt myself beginning to hyperventilate. I felt my face get warm and hot because of the salty tears freely pouring down my cheeks. "No," I whimpered. I felt like I had been stabbed, like my heart had been carved out. "No! Gabriel, wake up! Wake up, please!" I begged and begged, but he stayed the same. He was dead. I wasn't fast enough. It was my fault. "You're such a screw, Adelaide." "Someone get her out of here. Liliana, go with them," I heard Alpha Donnelly command. I looked up and saw a random pack warrior headed my way with Liliana not far behind him, with a worried expression on her face. I heard bones cracking, and I saw Alpha Donnelly shift into his large sandy wolf. He easily took down anyone in his path. I felt myself being lifted. No, I struggled weakly to get out of the pack warrior's grasp, but it was no use. I felt heavy and slow. "He can't be gone." "Addie," Liliana said my name, and I looked at her with red eyes, burning because of the salty tears. "It's going to be okay." I shook my head. "No, it's not." How could I be okay with Gabriel gone? How could anything be okay ever again? I looked back at the field. Gabriel's body was being carried away. Alpha Donnelly and his now surplus amount of warriors took down the last rogues and humans standing. The werewolves had won. Yay. The pack warrior carrying me placed me in the passenger seat of the car. He gave me a sympathetic look. "I'm sorry, beta female." I didn't respond. I just sat still in the seat, too shocked to comprehend what was even happening. My chest felt empty and hollow. I suddenly felt numb. The guilt and anxiety that had been bombarding me suddenly vanished and left me cold and empty. Lily stepped into the driver's seat and started the car. She started driving away from the scene. "Everything is going to be okay, Addie," concern laced through her voice. "How?" My voice cracked. "It was part of Caden's plan," she continued. "His plan was to get my mate killed," I spat out. She flinched, and I felt a slight pang of guilt hit me again. "Well, yes and no. Gabriel's not actually dead." "Wait, what?" I stared at her with raised eyebrows. She is either delusional, or I'm seriously out of the loop. I'm betting it was later since Gabriel doesn't tell me anything. Lily stared at me before continuing. "Gabriel's not dead. He was wearing a bulletproof vest." I sat back in the seat, and everything started coming together. There was no blood where Gabriel was shot. How did I not notice that? I guess I was too preoccupied with the thought that he might actually be dead. Caden and Gabriel knew the rogue would go after him since Gabriel killed his brother. So the plan was the act like Mr. Rogue got what he wanted, Gabriel dead, and then when his defenses were low, a bunch of pack warriors, and would bust out of the wood and take them all down. She looked at me to gauge my reaction. "It's a good plan," was all I could say. It was an excellent plan. That explains why there were more wolves there when we arrived than when we left. It also explains why I wasn't informed of the plan. My reaction to Gabriel being dead needed to be real. "That's why you didn't tell me," I said to her. She looked at me apologetically. "I'm really sorry, Addie. I wanted to tell you. I really did. Gabriel did too, but Caden told us not to. He wasn't sure about your acting skills." He bit her lip. "But he was sure about Gabriel's, huh? I mean, seriously. Someone should give him an Oscar for that performance back there. He really had me fooled." I wiped my face to make it dry. I felt relieved that Gabriel wasn't dead, but part of me was still anxious. I don't think I'd honestly be at rest until I saw him. And another part of me was slightly annoyed that they didn't tell me about the plan. However, a larger part of me understood and was trying to come to terms with it. If my reaction weren't believable, the whole plan would have been compromised. I looked out the window and realized we had driven past our houses. "Where are we going?" I asked. I had never felt more confused and oblivious than I did right now. "The pack house. That's where Gabriel and Caden are headed," she said, and I nodded my head. I looked down at my lap. "Come on, Addie," she urged. "Gabriel's not dead. We won." She tried to cheer me up, but it was of no use. I honestly felt foolish, and I had no idea why. But I sucked it up. Today wasn't a day for sulking. Gabriel was alive, and we did win against the rogues and humans. My lips thinned into a tight smile. Yeah, we won. Chapter 29. We stepped into the large office building and used the elevators to go to the top floor, where Alpha Donnelly's and Gabriel's offices were. The elevator ride was silent and awkward. The only sound was the hum of the machine as it pulled us up. I knew Lily felt bad about lying to me, but it wasn't her I was really concerned about. I just wanted to see Gabriel and confirm for myself that he was really alive. We made it to the top and stepped out. "Talk to him, Addie. He loves you," Lily said. She wrapped her arms around me to hug me. I hugged her back, and when she pulled away, I gave her a sad smile. She went into Alpha Donnelly's office to wait for him. Soon after, the elevator door behind me opened, and Alpha Donnelly stepped out. He looked at me and gave me a curt nod before making a beeline for his office, where Lily waited for him. I slowly walked over to Gabriel's office and hesitantly opened the door. I saw him sitting behind his large desk, staring at a file. His shirt had a hole in it, where the bullet had gone, but there was no blood. His hair was slightly tousled, and he ran his hand through it before looking up and seeing me. I closed the door behind me and walked up to him. He stood up and waited for me to approach him. "I know I promised," he began. "I know," Lily told me. "I understand," I said before he could. I stared at the bullet hole in his shirt and brought my hand to his chest. "I thought I had lost you." My voice was quieter than I expected it to be, but he heard me. "I know. But it's going to take a lot more than a bullet to keep me from you." I gave him a small smile before gently bringing his head down so his lips could meet mine. His hands tangled themselves in my hair, and he pressed down on my lips harder. I pulled away, gasping for air, and he ran his thumb over my swollen lips. He pressed his lips to mine again. He removed his hands from my hair. and they trailed down my body. He lifted me, and my legs wrapped around his waist while my arms wrapped around his neck so I could hold myself up. Gabriel sat down on the couch in his office, so I was in his lap. I began to undo his shirt buttons, and he growled, placing a large hand over mine to stop them. "Adelaide," he warned, "are you sure?" I nodded my head, warmed by this thoughtfulness. "I've missed you." His lips found mine again. He ran his hands over my shoulders, causing my jacket to fall to the floor with a soft thud. Gabriel positioned us so my chest was pressed against him. He wrapped an arm around me protectively and grabbed a blanket that was on top of the couch. He draped it over us, and I snuggled into him, ready to pass out. I closed my eyes and wrapped my arm around him. Then a thought crossed my mind, and my eyes shot open. I hadn't been taking my birth control pills since I got back. Chapter 30. 2 weeks had passed since the encounter with the rogues and humans. Everything was peaceful and as it should be, with only 2 more weeks till Christmas. Gabriel and I fell into a routine where, once again, I would tie his tie every morning, and then when he came home from work, we would have dinner and spend time together. I would hang out with Lily during the day and also do some online schoolwork. It honestly felt a little too normal, a little too mundane. However, it was during one of Lily's and my hangouts when that changed. I had told her about how I was worried I was pregnant and how I didn't want children yet. Since it had been 2 weeks, it was finally time to take a test. I wasn't, thank the Lord. Lily took one just for fun. She always made Alpha Donnelly use protection, so she was expecting it to be negative, but it wasn't. We sat on the couch in Alpha Donnelly's house and stared at her positive pregnancy test. Liliana was pregnant. We both stared at it in silence, confused at what was happening. "It's not possible." She shook her head and then looked down at her stomach. She grimaced at it. "It takes like 3 tries. Why don't you take another one?" I suggested. She nodded her head and went back to the bathroom. Lily came out when she was finished and sat next to me. The 30 minutes were going to go by painfully slowly. "I mean, I can't be. We always use protection," she muttered. "Well, I mean, he is an alpha. I guess they're just more effective," I said, looking at the pending pregnancy test. I furrowed my eyebrows and looked at Liliana. "Do you want kids now?" I asked her. She thought about it for a moment. Caden and I had been talking about it, about having one pretty soon, but this is a little too sudden, you know. She looked at me. "I mean, having one wouldn't be too bad. I love Caden, and I love kids. You know me." I bit my lip. Liliana was great with little kids, and I know she truly loved Caden, so maybe having one of her own wouldn't be the end of the world. She would make a great mother. "Why don't you want kids now?" Lily asked me, and the words got stuck in my throat. My brain stopped working momentarily. Why didn't I want kids? It wasn't because I didn't love Gabriel. I did. Sure, kids weren't my favorite people, but one of my own would be different. I'm pretty sure Gabriel wanted one. In fact, I recall that he expressed interest in one on our first day together. "I'm not sure. I just don't think I'm ready mentally," I said. Just then, the second pregnancy test formed a little cross in red ink. Liliana was most definitely pregnant. She stared at the test, completely flabbergasted. She blinked at it a couple of times, her mouth wide open. "What in the world?" she whispered. Honestly, that was the proper reaction. I didn't expect any of us to be getting pregnant so soon. "Wow, I'm going to be an auntie." I raised my eyebrows. "But if it's a boy, I'm going to be an uncle." I snickered and elbowed myself in the stomach, with a smile on my face. But the smile was quickly wiped away, and a serious expression was plastered on her face as she became deep in thought. Then she started to cry. I wrapped my arms around her and tried my best to comfort her. I wasn't the best with comforting people, but I tried my hardest to make her feel better. "I mean, it makes sense, I guess," she sniffled. "I've been throwing up every morning." I looked at her with raised eyebrows. Is she serious? That alone, with only one test, meant that she was probably pregnant. "That makes sense," I said. She let out a sigh and wiped her eyes. "What am I going to tell Caden?" "Tell me what, Liliana?" Lily and I jumped, frazzled by Alpha Donnelly's stealthy arrival. Gabriel walked up behind me and scanned us before his eyes landed on the coffee table, where 2 positive and 1 negative pregnancy test lay. "I'll clean the table," I told him. Having the tests on a table didn't really fit with the interior of the house. Alpha Donnelly furrowed his eyebrows and looked at the table. His expression softened as he looked towards Lily, a slight surprise and awe evident on his face. It wasn't hard to tell that he loved Lily, and anyone could see that he was proud to be having an heir. Seconds later, it was hard again. He glanced between Gabriel and me. "Leave us," he commanded. "No, no, don't leave," she whispered and shook her head. I had stood up to leave, but she pulled me back to the couch. I looked at Gabriel, who just looked bored, and then to Alpha Donnelly, who gave me a warning look. I cringed a little bit and looked back at Liliana. If I didn't leave Alpha, Donnelly would probably throw me out the window. I took Lily's hand and gave it a firm squeeze. "It's going to be okay," I whispered. She gave me a small smile, and I stood up to leave with Gabriel. The walk to the car was slightly awkward, and I knew he wanted to ask what had happened. Honestly, I didn't really know what to say, and what if he was upset that only Lily was pregnant and not me? We hadn't really talked about kids yet. Usually, mates get pregnant within the first month of being mated, but things between Gabriel and me were different, as was the case with Lily and Alpha Donnelly. "So Liliana is pregnant?" he asked, breaking the silence. I looked out the window, my breath fogging up the cold glass. "Yes." I shivered from the cold, and my hands moved to turn on the heat. They were stopped midway when Gabriel grabbed my hand. He used the other one to put the car in park. "How are we already home? Are you pregnant?" His tone was serious, intense even, and his grip on my hand was unforgiving. He wanted an answer, but I didn't know which one was the correct answer, so I just told him the truth. "No," I whispered. He slowly let go of my hand, a ghost of a smirk on his face. "Good, I want you to myself for a little bit longer." My cheeks flustered, and I looked at him like he was crazy. I was sure he wanted kids. Gabriel noticed my confused expression and grabbed my hand again, but more gently. "As I told you before, Adelaide, I'm selfish, and I want you all to myself." His thumb caressed the back of my hand. "But if you did end up pregnant, I would also be very nice pleased. It would be great to start a family with you." I'm not sure what it was, but my eyes began to water. I undid my seatbelt and threw myself over him, tightly embracing him. I dug my face into his neck, and I felt a tear slip out of my eye. "I love you," I whispered into his hair. His arms snaked around my waist, and he pulled me closer to him. "I love you too." Chapter 31. 2 weeks had passed since Liliana found out she was pregnant. Alpha Donnelly became more possessive, which I thought was impossible because he was already so protective of her. She was barely allowed out of the house, and she wasn't able to leave unless he was with her. I could visit as usual, but if Alpha Donnelly caught me and her out walking around the pack, he would have my head. I had just gotten back from a day of present wrapping with Liliana, since Christmas was tomorrow, which therefore implies that Christmas Eve is today. Christmas Eve, generally a day of relaxing with family and happiness. People are supposed to drink hot chocolate by a warm fire and watch classic Christmas movies with the tree glittering and illuminated in the corner. It sounds nice. Instead, I was worried and stressed. I stomped on the welcome mat of Gabriel's house lightly to get the snow off my boots. I shivered and pulled off my drenched coat. Liliana had given me my Christmas present early. But by my Christmas present, she really meant Gabriel's Christmas present. Her gift was a set of all red lace. The bralette was actually really comfortable because instead of an underwire, there was a silk ribbon that tied in the front, like a Christmas present. The top lining on the bottoms was also made from the same type of ribbon, and the way they were cut was a bit revealing. In conclusion, Liliana was a sneaky little devil, and I loved her for it. Additionally, Gabriel and Alpha Donnelly have been working diligently to maintain the pack's order. After the whole debacle with the rogues and humans, they had to make sure that no more humans knew of our existence. Was there anything wrong with giving Gabriel his present early? Right? He needs to relax. I became anxious as I changed out of my clothing and put on the matching set. What if he didn't like it? What would I do? I'd probably run out of the room and cry. To be honest, I inspected myself in the mirror to make sure I had it on correctly, and everything was in place. I put a white robe over myself and walked over to Gabriel's home office. His office at home was a lot like his office in the pack house. It was a little smaller, but it still had the same dark interior, complete with matching furniture and a fireplace, as well as a couch. I knocked on the door and waited for his word before I tiptoed inside. He was sitting at his large desk, staring intensely at his computer screen. He looked up when I got closer to him. "Are you okay?" he asked and used his chair to swivel to the side so I could stand in front of him, and his whole body would be facing me. I nodded my head. I just wanted to say Happy Early Christmas. I looked up at him to wait for his reaction and played with my fingers behind my back. "Merry Christmas, Adelaide," he said with a small smile. He was about to swivel back to face his desk, but I stopped him. "Wait, and I wanted to say that you should relax. It's Christmas Eve." And Alpha Donnelly had already finished his work when I left, so why don't you? My voice got smaller and smaller. I looked down at the floor and realized some of the red ribbon from the bralette had started to peek through. Gabriel grabbed my arm and pulled me to him so my knees were touching his. He grasped the loose knot that held the robe closed and played with the fabric for a minute. "What are you wearing underneath, Adelaide?" He didn't wait for me to answer and pulled on the knot so that the robe came undone, and he quickly pushed it over my shoulders so it flopped onto the floor. I blushed and looked down. When I looked back up, Gabriel was staring at me very intensely. "Do you like it?" "Liliana gave it to me as a present," I mumbled. His hands fell on my waist, and he pulled me to him so that I was sitting on his lap. His arms wrapped around me, and he put his face next to my ear. "If you wanted to give yourself to me as a present, you didn't have to wrap yourself up." My eyes widened, and I immediately became flustered. "But yes, it is nice." He kissed behind my ear, and I shivered. "Are you cold?" he questioned. Before I could respond, he lifted me up bridal style and walked over to the fire. He sat down on the floor and gently placed me back on his lap. I felt both the heat of the fire and of his stare. He kissed me, and things got heated very quickly. The set, though thoroughly admired, was soon flung across the room, as was Gabriel's clothing. Blankets were pulled down from the couch to make a sad but more comfortable spot on the floor. After a few hours, we were resting on Gabriel's office floor. I snuggled up to his chest when we were finished, and Gabriel pulled a blanket over us before wrapping his arm around me. I looked at the large clock hanging on the wall and noticed it was already a few minutes past midnight. Snow lightly patted against the window and looked gray in the night sky. I smiled lightly. It was snowing on Christmas morning. "Merry Christmas," I whispered and closed my eyes. "Merry Christmas, baby girl." Epilogue. Christmas Day started with me having an aching back, probably from Gabriel's roughness, and another from sleeping on the ground. I was still in his office on the ground, the blankets tightly wound around me, which only Gabriel could have done because when I sleep, the blankets go flying all over the place. Gabriel was also nowhere in sight. I groaned and slowly got up. I cracked my back and held the blankets tightly to my chest before walking out and heading to the bathroom. After a quick shower and getting dressed in sweatpants and a sweatshirt, I finally went downstairs. Under the tree was a massive number of presents that had not been there the night before. A couple of them were mine for Gabriel, but I didn't recognize the others. I turned my head away, thinking that most of them were probably just from pack members to Gabriel. Zeus ran up to me, bouncing up excitedly. The Santa hat on his head swung back and forth. I smiled at the sight. It took Gabriel a lot of convincing and a few promises, but he finally allowed me to put a Santa hat on Zeus, and he looked adorable. I scratched behind his ear, and he followed me into the kitchen, where Gabriel was drinking a cup of coffee. Just looking at him and remembering last night made my cheeks warm. I looked down and walked to the fridge. When I walked past him, I said, "Merry Christmas again." I take out the orange juice, and he grabs it from me. He presses my body to him, and all I can do is stare. Gabriel was incredibly attractive. "Did you see the presents?" he asked. I nod my head. "Yeah. Are they from pack members?" He scoffs a little. "No, Adelaide. They're for you. From me." My eyes widen. "Can he take them back?" "Yes. I'll admit I got him a few things, and some of those things drained my bank account, but the ratio of his presents to mine was uncalled for. There was no way it was fair. And Gabriel had proved that he liked to spend money. As long as it was rational, I wouldn't be able to pay him back. But there are so many?" I furrowed my brows. He clenches his jaw and gives me an annoyed look, bored almost. "And?" I don't respond. "Just open them," he pressed. He guides me to the living room, where the tree was, and he hands me one, mumbling something about how he wanted me to open that one first. I hesitantly took the small box from him and took the wrapping paper off it. I must say, he had quite the knack for Christmas gift wrapping. I glanced at him again, who looked frustrated that I was taking so long and quickly opened the box. I instantly shut it again and handed it back to him. "I can't take it. It's too expensive." It was a diamond choker necklace from Swarovski. I could never. He took the box and placed it next to me. I scooted away from it as if it were toxic. Gabriel rolled his eyes, and then handed me the following box. I furrowed my eyebrows and opened it. The same pattern of me rejecting the gift and handing it back to him, only for him to place it back next to me, kept repeating until I had finished unwrapping all of my gifts. "There's one more," he said stoically. He then took off his shirt, and my eyes widened. "Gabriel," I started, a blush rising to my cheeks as I remembered the night before. A ghost of a smirk swept onto his face. "This is different," he said. I rolled my eyes, and my gaze landed on his tattooed chest, the similar scene of a forest with 2 wolves that I knew all too well. I loved his tattoo, and I thought he looked amazing with it. Except something was different. There were 2 more wolves. The first 2 wolves were my parents. The next 2 are you and me. You and me? Gabriel and I. I stared at his chest for a while, looking at the 2 new wolves in black ink. I got up from my seat and walked up to him. My fingers traced the outline of the latest addition to his tattoo, which was covered by plastic wrap. Out of all the gifts, this was by far the best. Nothing I got him could ever compare. Sure, we were mates, and we were married, but the fact that he put it in ink, permanently on his body, was different. It wasn't just a tattoo. It went a lot deeper than skin deep. I could feel it, and I think he felt it too, which is why he put them there in the first place. The thought made me incredibly warm and fuzzy. I felt giddy and happy, and it was all so intense. Gabriel may seem really cold, but in reality, he was exceptionally considerate and could be very sweet when he wanted to be. I felt a familiar thickness in my throat and a sting every time I swallowed. My eyes soon pricked with tears. "I love it," I whispered out, my fingers still dancing atop his chest. He grabbed my hand. "Adelaide, I know I'm not the most welcoming person. I know I struggle with..." He took a deep breath. "Emotions." He spit out the last word so quickly I almost missed it. "But you are my angel. I care about you a lot more than I think you believe." He stopped again for a moment. "I'm trying to say is that I care for you deeply and would do anything to see you happy." The tears I tried to hold back fell anyway, and I wrapped my arms around him tightly. "I love you so much," I whispered into his chest. "I love you too." He kissed the top of my head and encased me in his arms. In truth, there was no other place I'd rather be. I honestly couldn't believe that before I had been so scared of him. Even though it was only a few months ago, the feelings of hesitation I felt for him seemed like nothing, only a distant memory. I didn't think I would be happy here, but I was. I was happy with Liliana as Luna, and even though he hated me, I was pleased with Alpha Donnelly, and I was happy with Gabriel.